A swarm of nosy students crowded the campus courtyard, itching for a dramatic spectacle. Rumors of a messy breakup spread like wildfire, and everyone wanted a front row seat. Rosa, the school's top-tier redhead beauty, stood at the center with a cold, haughty smirk. Chin high, she ruthlessly dumped him. Wealthy, elite, and popular, she was out of his league. Then there was Luis, poor, unremarkable, and utterly average. In her eyes, he was just trash. Their romance was dead weight, and she staged this public execution for maximum humiliation. Deep down, she craved the drama. She expected Luis to fall to his knees and beg. She wanted witnesses to his desperation, but reality slapped her hard. Luis didn't flinch. He merely offered a calm, icy stare before uttering two soul-crushing words, "That's fine." A suffocating silence choked the crowd. Rosa froze her brain, failing to process his indifference. Surely this was a pathetic bluff. Scowling, she shrieked that his acting wouldn't change anything. Nothing he did would win her back. That's when Luis pierced her with a freezing gaze. He simply stated he was exhausted by her ego. A campus beauty shouldn't be so insufferable. The crowd gasped. Nobody expected this, nobody to strike back with such savage, emotionless precision. Luis turned and walked away, his aura surging with every step. But they were all clueless. Luis was a changed man. He knew society's petty rules were about to become completely worthless. Apocalypse was coming. To him, Rosa was just a ghost from a past life he'd outgrown. It started last night. Luis jolted awake as jagged, ethereal cracks fractured the air before him. They bled fragments of a grim future, terrifying visions of a world being torn apart. Amidst the cosmic horror, a digital ping echoed. A mysterious system window flickered into existence. Spiritual energy resurgence detected. Total awakening will trigger in exactly 361 days. Luis reeled from the mental overload. This grim prophecy felt like a heavy, suffocating weight. Shadowy figures emerged from the void, as the system unveiled a chilling absolute truth. Civilization's laws were ending. The era of cultivation was dawning, where raw power dictated survival. Power was the new global currency. Driven by instinct, Luis reached out demanding answers. An eerie glow flooded the room. A translucent interface shimmered the legendary system had arrived. It hailed from the universe's edge, powered by ancient algorithms and primordial cosmic secrets. Its primary purpose, crafting elite cultivation techniques from any spiritual essence the host touched. However, Luis was currently a blank slate, possessing zero skills or combat abilities. He reached through the interface. Suddenly, a colossal beast lunged forward, letting out a terrifying roar. Luis froze. Clenched between the creature's fangs was a mangled, lifeless human corpse. The system delivered a brutal warning. This was his end as a mere mortal human. This slaughter would soon claim billions on Earth. Luis swallowed hard, his throat feeling tight. Terror gripped his heart, and anxiety flooded his mind. But then he started to remember. Memories of his past life surged back. He had been a nobody, just a face in the crowd. He was swept away by chaos, barely clinging to life as he watched nations crumble. He witnessed his people's agony, yet ultimately, the mutant monsters hunted him down too. The memory of his death was vivid, cold, desperate, and burning with a thirst for revenge. His eyes blazed with resolve. The truth clicked. This was exactly why the system chose him. He was sent back 1 year before the awakening for one purpose, to rewrite history. Taking a deep breath, Luis swore to weaponize his future knowledge to the absolute limit. He would devour every aura anomaly to evolve. Right then, the system began a scan. His eyes glowed like twin suns as the interface flashed, binding, successful, connection established, a legendary path unlocked. From this moment on, everything in existence was potential fuel. His mission was set in stone: hunt down god-tier techniques and seize ultimate power, to become a supreme cultivator and save this crumbling world. Meanwhile, across the city, urgent, official alerts began to flood the streets. Humanity was officially facing a crisis beyond their wildest nightmares. The past held no answers. Survival meant one thing: adapt or die. While the masses were paralyzed by the news, Luis stayed ice cold. He checked his phone and saw notifications blowing up. The government wasn't confirming or denying the chaos, they were simply telling everyone to brace for impact. Luis knew this silent strategy was the only thing keeping the nation from spiraling into total anarchy and losing faith. Then he remembered the system's hint. He could harvest materials from literally anything. That meant he had to dive headfirst into the heart of the nearest reality-warping anomalies. A headline on his feed caught his eye. The UV index at Magdalena University had shattered all records. A code red heat advisory was issued warning every incoming freshman to take extreme safety precautions and douse themselves in sunblock. Luis glanced at the gray, overcast sky. His device read 0. Something was dead wrong. He couldn't wrap his head around how the weather could be so bipolar when the campus was only a 15-minute drive away. However, on social media, viral clips showed a lethal scorching sun torching the university grounds. Officials insisted registration would continue, but they ordered students to avoid the north gate due to the deadly radiation levels. Every other entrance remained open. Luis let out a dark smirk. He knew that when these anomalies first appear, people just assume it's some crazy marketing stunt. Only he knew the terrifying truth. And that's exactly why he was hyped. His first shot at power had finally arrived. Without wasting a second, Luis geared up and headed toward Magdalena University. Along the way, he saw crowds huddled under umbrellas. The heat was so suffocating that leaves were literally shriveling off the trees. Still, our hero marched straight for the North Gate, the one place everyone else was avoiding. He sensed something was wrong. Suddenly, hundreds of glowing incandescent ashes began raining from the heavens. Students scrambled in pure terror, trying to avoid being burned alive. While everyone else ran, Luis was locked onto those shimmering particles. He decided to touch them. The instant his finger made contact, a blinding explosion of light consumed him. The system screamed a notification. Massive, Yang, attribute detected. Initiating data model sync. Raw molten energy began surging through Luis's entire body, causing him absolute agony. A radiant, blinding glow erupted from his skin, forcing onlookers to shield their eyes. To avoid going blind, the crowd retreated in confusion. Some even thought they were having a collective hallucination. The energy scorched Luis's clothes as he clutched his head, fighting to keep his sanity. He didn't know if the system would finish the technique before he snapped. He felt like he was on the brink of death. Finally, the sync finished. Luis had mastered a Yang technique, the golden sun breathing technique. Soon after, the official enrollment day for new students arrived. Amidst the chaotic crowds at Magdalena University, the protagonist's ex-girlfriend appeared, walking through the registration zone with total confidence. A guy immediately swarmed her, offering to carry her bags. She shut them down, one by one, cold as ice. She didn't have time for their games. With a sharp no, she kept moving. But seeing a happy couple nearby reminded her of the inevitable. She was officially single now. Suddenly, the vibe shifted. Rosa almost jumped out of her skin when a massive explosion rocked the entire campus. Panic-stricken voices over the speakers screamed for everyone to evacuate the North Gate. But Rosa's curiosity was too strong. With a serious expression, she went to investigate. Suddenly, a pillar of golden energy blasted into the sky. From the smoke, a legendary figure emerged. He exhaled, his eyes burning with a fierce divine golden light. A system window flickered before him. He had birthed a new technique and earned 50 points. As a reward, Luis stared at the notification. Those points were nice, but he knew they were just the beginning. Late that night, under a corrupted moon, Luis began to train. The next morning, a new sun rose over the university campus. A bizarre energy surges across the campus. Panicked students sprint toward the North Gate, noticing the sky darken and the temperature plummet mid-run. Upon arriving, they find a massive, restless crowd already gathered. The furious dean demands an immediate explanation. Why did everyone ignore the evacuation order? Suddenly, a small group cuts through the mob, as the crowd parts like the Red Sea to let them pass. At the center stands a hooded figure with eyes of ice. With a voice like iron, he orders the dean to seal the gate. Simultaneously, the system pings Luis, confirming a contaminated zone has been purged. He instantly realizes the government likely knows everything now. A chilling thought crosses his mind. Are there others with his power? A restricted access alert confirms his worst fears. This is serious. From a nearby rooftop, students spot tactical units and whisper about the military's arrival. Luis knows he's drawing too much heat. His crimson eyes flare as he makes a split-second choice. Time to ghost. He leaps from the ledge and vanishes. Down below, on the mana-scorched earth, the mysterious hooded figure stalks forward. Every step echoes against the shattered pavement. Kneeling, she touches the ground, searching for any lingering traces of residual energy. She retrieves a jagged fragment of scorched stone for closer inspection. After a cold analysis, she reaches a terrifying conclusion. A single individual unleashed all this power. Evacuations begin. Watching from the shadows of the crowd, the protagonist's ex-girlfriend hears the rumors, and her jaw drops. One person caused this much devastation. Just then, Rosa spots a blur, leaping across the horizon. For a heartbeat, she thinks of Luis, but immediately kills the thought. Given his pathetic grades, she's certain he could never survive in this new, brutal world. Far away, the sun dips below the horizon as night swallows Luis's home. He lies in bed, restless. Even after a freezing shower, his core feels like it's melting. The heat is unbearable, and worse, he fears his secret is out. He grabs his phone to check the trending news. A cult-like association is making headlines, an organization everyone used to treat as an internet meme. But the hooded figures from the university flash in his mind instantly. It clicks. They belong to that mysterious association. Fueled by curiosity, he taps the article. The post details the paths of cultivation ranging from ghost tier to total transcendence. In the comments, most users laugh it off as a massive LARP or some weird fantasy. But Luis knows better. Sitting up, he realizes he never heard of this cult in his previous life. Intrigued by this shadowy group, he decides to test his technique again. He closes his eyes and focuses. Sweat pours down his face as a violent golden aura begins to spiral around him. The energy surges, lifting his body into the air as a blinding radiance floods the room. Phase 1. Tempering the physical vessel to handle the raw power of heaven and earth. Gritting his teeth, Luis tames the energy, molding it into a razor-sharp axe of pure light. His eyes ignite with power, and a confident smirk plays on his lips. This strength is intoxicating. Suddenly, the system announces he has reached level Duxie and grants him 50 bonus points. Luis eyes the floating interface, his mind racing with possibilities. A new path has opened. The system explains that these points can be used to infuse compiled data into any physical object. The prospect of enchanting items piques his interest. He glares at a simple cup on his desk. He reaches out his hand, glowing with golden static. The system asks if he wants to spend points to imbue the cup with the Yang attribute. It's like enchanting gear in a game with special traits. He imagines applying this to a blade, it would become a god-tier weapon of destruction. Ready to gear up for the coming storm, he grabs a small sword from the shelf to test the process. If this works, he'll buy a real blade later to hunt the monsters lurking in the dark. But just as he's about to begin, a sudden sound shatters the silence of the night. An eerie scratching echoes from the void outside. In the shadows, a monster fixates on Luis's apartment. Massive claws and crimson eyes burn with bloodlust. Its jaw unhinges, revealing rows of razor-sharp fangs. It's a twisted demonic rabbit from a nightmare. It coils to strike. Inside, Luis remains blissfully unaware of the approaching doom. Tossing in bed, he feels a strange, agonizing itch from his new cultivation technique. With bloodshot eyes, he scans the room for a faint, high-pitched squeak like a rodent. He listens intently. The sound isn't from the pipes or his small apartment. Perhaps it's a neighbor's pet. His god-tier hearing makes every floor sound like it's next door. But as Luis locks onto the erratic noise, his gut screams that something is wrong. His face hardens as he goes into full battle alert. He flings the door open to the hallway. There, in the suffocating darkness, stands a freakish creature. Those glowing red eyes are locked onto him. It was waiting for him. Its predatory stance makes one thing clear: it's ready to kill. Luis freezes. He recognizes this nightmare. It's a mutant beast. Suddenly, memories of his past life flash before him. High above the city streets, a drone hums through the night. Someone else is hunting this threat. Perched atop a skyscraper, a mysterious girl surveys the neon sprawl with pure boredom. She sighs about the delay in catching this rabbit that ate a forbidden fruit, swirling a lollipop. She looks completely chill, but her sharp gaze hides the confidence of a top-tier predator. Keep the updates coming, she commands her team, tracking the target's every move. Without hesitation, she dives off the roof. She plummets into the abyss between the skyscrapers. With supernatural grace, she navigates the urban canyon like it's her personal playground. The hunt is on. The terrifying drop means nothing to someone with her skills. Suddenly, mid-air, a massive surge of energy hits her. The mutant beast's power is skyrocketing. Her eyes ignite. She spots the creature and locks in. The hunter slams onto a nearby rooftop with force. Maintaining her momentum, she sprints effortlessly, even running vertically down the side of the building. Her orders are absolute: terminate the target. She pushes forward, closing the gap instantly. Leaping between structures, she continues the pursuit. She knows the beast ate a spirit fruit. It could evolve into a true disaster at any second. Elsewhere in the city, a salaryman working late sees a blur streak past his window. The speed is mind-blowing. He blinks, dazed. Was it just a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and coffee? Before he can process it, his boss starts screaming at him. Meanwhile, high above the hunter, silhouettes against the moon on the 65th floor. Cut back to the apartment where things are heated. The monster screeches a bone-chilling cry at Luis, but now his own golden eyes flare with power. He feels the transformation in his veins. He's no longer prey, he's an equal. The beast lunges. Razor claws swipe at his throat, but Luis dodges with god-tier reflexes and speed. The world slows down. He can see every frame of the attack in slow motion. It's incredible. Faint solar energy begins to swirl around his fist. A dark thought crosses his mind. Why is a mutant appearing so early in the timeline? Past life memories flood his brain during combat. Luis realizes the evolution isn't complete yet. But every frantic strike makes the beast more feral. He has to end this now. If he fails, everyone in this building is dead meat. Charging his hand with blazing energy, Luis lunges forward and grapples the monster mid-air. With zero fear, he bites down on the creature with savage force, pinning it down. His golden eyes turn cold as ice. He twists the beast's body with violent precision. There it is. The tail is its weak point, seizing the chance. He grips it tight and hurls the monster through the window. Shards of glass explode everywhere. His fist glows with solar fury. Luis unleashes a devastating energy beam, obliterating the mutant beast. Mid-air, the beast was engulfed in golden lightning, yet it desperately lashed out its claws. It seized the essence, hungering for his strength. Luis realized it instantly: the creature was trying to drain him. Yang surged, proving the solar heat was lethal for the beast. Suddenly, the rabbit entity began to self-destruct. Moments later, a radiant blast consumed the monster, overwhelmed by the pure energy. In the adjacent building, a couple jolted awake from the roar. The man mumbled groggily, wondering if it was just a thunderclap. He checked the window but saw nothing unusual. Back inside, Luis touched down on the floor. As the golden embers faded, he realized the creature was like a specter famished for his aura. The battle ended as a single monster eye tumbled to the concrete, twitching in the dark. Dark smoke hissed from the remains. With a grim look, Luis stared down at the beast's ashes. He crushed the eye underfoot without hesitation. Clearly, the Night Stalker had been desperate for his celestial might. Yang was its natural poison. Had he been ordinary, this fiend would have devoured the entire neighborhood. Luis knew he couldn't stop here. To survive the coming storms, he needed to master even deadlier techniques. Darkness was gathering. Meanwhile, beneath the silver moon, a mysterious girl glided effortlessly through the night sky. Reaching the scene, her eyes widened in shock. What she found left her completely breathless. She froze in the shadows. A stranger had already annihilated her target before she could arrive. Kneeling amidst the debris, she carefully inspected the charred remnants of the fallen beast. Hoping to salvage its night core, she reached out only for a jolt of power to strike her. Lingering golden energy surged into her fingertips. A blistering heat raced through her entire nervous system. Her soul resonated with the flames. Instantly, she recalled that same aura from the university gates earlier. This was no fluke. Realizing the truth, she immediately flicked on her high-tech communicator. With a sharp gaze, she reported that an elite outsider had utterly crushed the high-level target. Base questioned if this was the same powerhouse who cleared the gate and the rabbit monster. Short on intel, a commander suggested a new mission: find this mystery man and recruit him at all costs. The silver-haired hunter nodded, sealing a flickering spark of that golden energy into a specialized container. New orders arrived: drop all secondary tasks. Her sole priority was now hunting down that mysterious stranger. The hunter unwrapped a lollipop, savoring the sweetness while processing the high-stakes command. She coolly replied, "I'll start, but first, I need some boba tea to set the mood." When asked again about the outsider's true ceiling, the young girl let out a knowing smirk. The president was right. She had to meet this master. Meanwhile, Luis's day begins at dawn. He stretches, readying his muscles for another grueling session as the first light breaks. Rising early fuels his growth. He begins by inhaling the sun's pure golden morning essence. Through deep breathing, energy floods his veins until his eyes ignite with a brilliant golden shine. He plunges into the Phantom Axe realm, feeling the ancient technique awaken in his soul. Suddenly, a power surge rattles his frame. Luis is shocked. He's far stronger than he was yesterday. Force flows through every fiber. He clenches his fist, feeling the raw vibrations of pure energy. He summons his chi axe. It feels weightless now. Gripping the handle, his resolve hardens. Eager to test his limits, he raises the golden blade. Luis winds up for a world-shattering strike. Now, a 2-star Phantom Axe Master, his eyes blaze with the fire of his awakened potential. His physique is now ironclad, a direct result of the bonus magic from his latest upgrade. He decides to grind carefully, but his massive power spike is already drawing unwanted attention. He needs a private sanctuary. Meanwhile, at the Association HQ, a man senses a solar shift. He frowns, sensing a disturbance in the sun's aura. "Is it that rookie again?" he mutters. The scene shifts. Luis finds a secluded riverside to push his training to the next level. A system screen flickers to life, confirming a new special attribute added to his golden axe. His previous attempt shattered a lesser weapon, but this time, the results will be legendary. The blade syncs perfectly with his aura. System encoding complete. Adrenaline pumping, he prepares for a test drive. A golden beam pierces the sky. Luis sticks the landing blade wreathed in flames as raw energy surges through him. The shockwave nearly ignites the forest, revealing the magnitude of his terrifying strength. A massive smoke plume snitches his location, forcing an immediate tactical retreat. Minutes later, a hunter arrives, cursing her luck for missing the show. She freezes. The river is literally boiling. Overhead, scouts gape at the absolute carnage. She can already feel the coming lecture. This kid is a total chaos magnet. Suddenly, a golden shimmer stops her cold. The hunter's jaw hits the floor. Impossible. He jumped from 1 to 2 stars and forged a spiritual weapon. Only 2 exist in the entire association. The crafting method is a lost art. Suspicion creeps in. How did he obtain this god-tier power solo? Shaking it off, she starts cleaning up the mess Luis left behind. Elsewhere, Luis plots. His young attribute blade is strong, but he craves more. The system encodes everything. He'll add new traits. Suddenly, his phone buzzes. Unknown sender. Crap, he totally forgot to mask his digital privacy. It's an invite to an elite pioneer group. Luis is officially intrigued. These guys are Phantom Axe level. They're tracking a fresh contamination zone. A group raid. Luis quickly pings them for the exact location. Target the lava dragon. It's a Yang-type beast, the perfect match for him. He's in. Meanwhile, in Vimu, a squad waits for old Lee's friend. One member notes their map is flawless, making the trek a total breeze. The blonde leader rallies the troop, preaching the gospel of total teamwork. Representing the Cultivation Association, she's honestly tired of these low-level scrubs. Fact is, her association is a shadow government group pulling the strings. It took major family favors to get here. Failure isn't in her vocabulary. Luis is here, a scout bellows. Luis enters, gripping his legendary blade. The manager senses his aura. It isn't threatening, just strangely, intensely warm. With the squad gathered, the leader signals the charge into the abyss. Luis takes point, ordering the manager to light the way into the darkness. Watch your step. A teammate warns about the treacherous, crumbling path ahead. Strangely, the heat is bearable. Luis feels a rare spark of brotherhood, but as they press deeper, his instincts scream that something is wrong. The ground beneath him shifts colors, a neon sign for impending doom. They hit a massive cavern staring down a literal river of molten fire. Luis charges in. The manager screams for him to stop this suicidal madness. Ignoring them, Luis plunges his blade into the magma. The squad loses it. A fiery blast rocks the cavern, tossing the pioneers back like ragdolls. The system flags a world-class anomaly and begins a frantic real-time analysis. Scanning. New power unlocked, inner flame. It's ultra-high temp and pure destruction. Data confirmed, scarlet flame sword technique. Time to unleash the beast. As Luis pulls back, the lightning dies, replaced by a living fire shroud. He grips the hilt as his eyes ignite with a fierce burning glow. This legendary technique was destined for his blade. It's a perfect match. Below, the dazed explorers gape. Luis stands untouched within a hellish fire vortex. Right then, he realizes his blade is literally devouring the lava's heat. Wasting no time, he dumps his skill points to hard-code the Scarlet Flame attribute into his steel, making it pulse with raw power. As the smoke clears, his crew reaches a verdict. Luis just had a minor cultivation mishap, but was totally fine. The squad, however, is hyped as the cave's wild spiritual energy finally chills out. One scout cheers over the smooth energy flow, while another preps to start their own grind. He shouts for Xiaoya in excitement. The blonde manager tells them to lock in on training, while she plays lookout, earning a chorus of thanks from the team. But then, the peace shatters. Xiaoya pings multiple hostiles at the entrance and sounds the alarm. New pioneers are crashing the party. 3 beefy thugs barge in uninvited. Leading them is a guy with an eye patch and creepy, glowing crimson eyes. With total ego, he claims this resource-rich zone as theirs. Xiaoya's heart sinks. Recognizing these goons as Ghost Axe, an A-rank squad, her team stands zero chance. Still, she keeps her cool and tries playing the diplomatic card, claiming first dibs, and even offering an alliance. The leader just scoffs at her pathetic level and barks for them to beat it or get buried. Xiaoya grits her teeth at this dog-eat-dog reality, where only the strong survive. But as a Xia Nation rep, she can't just let this slide. Just as things are about to go south, Luis steps in, shielding Xiaoya from the hostile leader with his flaming blade. Coldly, Luis looks the big guy in the eye and asks if he's really so bored that he has to bully girls. The eye patch guy is stunned into silence. Luis doesn't wait for a comeback and delivers a single devastating swing. A massive fireburst erupts, yeeting all 3 attackers backward. The shockwave makes his own team stop dead in their tracks. Absolutely shook. Luis knows for those who live by brute force, only absolute power works. He slams his sword into the ground, a massive golden aura exploding around him. Terrified by this second monster-tier energy flex, the leader screams for a retreat and flees. They vanish in a blink, while Luis watches silently. His crew approaches him, still processing the flex. He just shrugs it off with a smirk, casually mentioning it's time to head out. As they trek back, Xiaoya can't get Luis's power out of her head. It finally clicks. He was holding back the whole time. Luis has to be some kind of high-rank pioneer, and she needs to report this immediately. Meanwhile, at the high-stakes office of the Spiritual Cultivation Association, a clerk repeats Xiaoya's report in pure disbelief. Another high-stat pioneer, she freezes, realizing she's being way too loud, mostly because a massive, imposing shadow is standing right behind her. She hangs up fast, sweating as she confirms the intel. Turning to her boss, a gray-haired veteran, she asks if finding 2 top-tier pioneers back-to-back isn't just insane luck. The old man stays stone-faced, correcting her. This isn't luck at all. Every individual with stats this high is destined to be a new pillar of power, and managing legends like them is a massive headache. Under the blazing noon sun, Luis strolls back into town trying to blend in as a random cosplayer. But his main character energy and that insanely real sword just draw more eyes. He checks his phone, stopping cold when he sees the cave incident is already going viral. He kicks himself for being sloppy. That fire eruption was way too flashy. He quickly dismisses the idea of a betrayal. Something more urgent is calling. The massive surge of yang energy he absorbed is forcing a level break. He needs a spot to hide. Wasting no time, he retreats toward a jagged, remote mountain peak. Minutes later, a striking silver-haired girl named Mara, a legendary garden restoration expert, detects a soul-crushing pressure. Suddenly, a blinding supernova erupts, painting the sky as if a miniature sun had just been born. Mara instantly recognizes the omens. A powerhouse is currently shattering the bottleneck to reach the 3-star Ghost Axe realm. The sheer scale of this energy is monstrous, leaving her paralyzed by such a violent high-tier ascension. Driven by duty and a flicker of intuition, Mara sprints toward the epicenter of the chaos. She vows to finally unmask this phantom. Atop the summit, Luis is locked in deep, transcendent concentration. Violent rivers of golden essence spiral around him, slowly coalescing into a crown of light above his head, until they form a radiant orb hovering in the sky like a localized burning star. While floating in midair meditation, the raw power radiating behind him begins to weave itself together, until it manifests as a complex divine star. Golden electricity crackles under his skin like caged lightning, as his eyes blaze with terrifying intensity, taming that wild force. Finally, the energy begins to compress. Within seconds, the power solidifies into a massive divine axe forged from pure, shimmering golden essence, infused with crystalline blue light. Just as the weapon sparks with a lethal, terrifying glow, Mara reaches the scene. She freezes, stunned by the sight. Right before her eyes, this enigmatic figure is about to swing the very weapon he just manifested. His level of control is honestly insane. How could anyone wield such a massive ocean of spiritual power with such surgical, unwavering precision? The sight triggers a bitter, haunting memory. Mara recalls her own desperate attempt to reach the first 2-star Ghost Axe rank. Back then, the backfire from her own divine weapon was so brutal it broke her. She had ended up hacking up blood, left completely bedridden for an entire week after that failure. Even with her genius-level talent, her breakthrough was a total disaster. She just couldn't wrap her head around how Luis is dominating such a monstrous power surge. The closer she gets, the more her jaw drops. The vastness of his spirit energy and his flawless axe work exceed every legend she has ever heard. Every ounce of power feels purified thousands of times over. This man isn't just a terrifying prodigy, he feels like a literal god. Then she notices it, his absolute icy composure. Most top-tier hunters rush through their breakthroughs with anxiety, but Luis moves with a sense of total haunting serenity. It's as if he's guided by the experience of an ancient master. Without warning, the massive flame-wreathed divine axe begins to move. Mara watches mesmerized as he raises it with iron determination and swings toward the east. At his peak, Luis's eyes burn with gold fire. Even as raw energy cracks across his face, he drifts calmly within a blinding golden storm of power, perfectly steering the tempest to finalize his evolution. Then a system window flashes before him, confirming the result. He has officially reached the 3-star Ghost Axe realm. In that split second, the divine axe slams down with pure violence. The impact unleashes a devastating shockwave that literally tears the mountain apart. Mara is blasted by the gale and struggles to stay upright against the golden tide. The residual force continues to surge forward, carving a path of total destruction through the forest before vanishing into the distant horizon. But when Mara looks up again, Luis has vanished. He is gone without a trace, gasping for air. Exhausted and frustrated, she can't believe she lost him again, especially arriving mere seconds after his peak. A haunting thought crosses her mind. He must know she is following his every move. If he stays this elusive, her recruitment mission is going to be a total nightmare. Just as she is about to give up, she stops. A sudden realization sparks in her mind. Ignoring the path of destruction, she glances at a nearby ancient tree. It glows with a faint, yet persistent golden light. With newfound confidence, she calls out to the seemingly empty woods. "Sir, are you still there?" A moment later, a silhouette slowly emerges from the deep shadows. Luis steps out from the trees, his hooded figure radiating a cold, detached, and legendary confidence. Crimson eyes flared, locking onto Mara. In that heartbeat, the realization hit. He knew exactly who she was. She was the stalker digging into his life, and he knew every secret she'd uncovered. Mara held her ground, introducing herself as captain of the Firefly Squad, an elite association unit. They were the Sea Nation's top spiritual practitioners. On behalf of the association, she made her move. She dropped a formal invitation for him to join, admitting she'd been tailing him for 2 days. She hoped her stalking hadn't left a bad taste. Luis remained chillingly silent the entire time. His face was a mask of stone beneath his hood as Mara continued her pitch. While the public was clueless, the association already had his official paperwork drafted and ready. Her nerves were fried. She chose every word carefully, terrified of triggering a man this powerful. But just as she hit her stride, Luis cut her off with a blunt, icy question. "Why should I join?" The suddenness of it left her stammering and completely caught off guard. Panic surged, but she quickly realized that empty promises wouldn't work on someone this sharp. The truth was her only card left. Regaining her cool, she revealed the association's endgame. The Sea Nation was desperate to herd the first pioneers into an organized, protected front. She knew the association sounded like a cage to a free spirit like him, but she urged him to see the big picture. A massive wave of spiritual energy was coming. When it hits, humanity must stand united against the nightmare enemies the future holds. After her passionate speech, Luis just leaned against a nearby tree, looking totally over it. His expression was pure boredom. His answer was a hard pass. He wasn't joining. He calmly explained that he didn't trust her, and he certainly didn't trust the association. Mara was floored by his direct rejection. Desperate, she snatched her ID from her jacket. She flashed the card, reintroducing herself. Her name was Mara. Before the world changed, she was a star athlete. She begged him to believe her. She hoped her public reputation would buy some trust. Luis stayed silent for a long moment. He rubbed his chin, claiming he vaguely remembered her face from somewhere. A mental image flickered a photo of Mara celebrating as a long-distance running runner-up. It made sense now. Her natural athleticism was why she'd become such an elite pioneer. But then, his vibe shifted. His face went dark as a grim memory surfaced. He remembered his past life, a vision of a society completely shattered and destroyed. In the original timeline, the Sea Nation's plan failed, leading to the total collapse of humanity. Now back with his system, he knew he had to be the solution, not a pawn. Joining them now was a mistake. Looking at a hopeful Mara, he confirmed he remembered her. He told her he'd consider the offer. Then before she could blink, he vanished. He leaped into the clouds, disappearing at a speed that defied logic. Suddenly, Luis materialized right behind a shocked Mara with one final firm condition. His location had to remain a secret. He studied her respectful, almost fearful reaction. He realized the association was terrified of offending high-tier solo pioneers. That was a weakness he could use. Sensing an opening, Mara proposed a secret deal. The higher-ups detected his power surge and wanted a report. She offered to fake it. She'd mix lies with truth to protect him and satisfy her bosses. Luis accepted. Mara tried to call out to him again, but he had already ghosted her instantly. She scrambled down the mountain trying to track him, but it was totally useless. Exhausted and annoyed, she grumbled about failing the mission and cleaning up his energy trail. Suddenly, a voice hissed in her earpiece. "Forget the pioneer. The creatures are back." Mara froze. "They're back." A brutal memory of those monsters flooded her mind. Crimson jaws and glowing ruby eyes, wolves from a nightmare. He would never forget those blood-crazed beasts. Ruthless monsters spawned from toxic zones birthed by the sudden surge of spiritual energy. Within these blighted areas, they evolved rapidly into apex predators with a taste for human flesh. Some even weaponized natural disasters, striking from the shadows in total silence. As the corruption spreads, mankind faces extinction, unless these ravaging hordes are put down for good. Elsewhere, a savage storm pummels the city. Streetlights provide no comfort in this suffocating darkness. Instead, jagged lightning rips the sky apart. Torrential rain screams, as emergency alerts flood every smartphone. Citizens are ordered to take cover immediately. Mount Yang is now a restricted flooding zone. People whisper about the unnatural weather, some joking about celestial beings facing a divine trial. They claimed only an entity of supreme power could trigger such a cataclysmic atmospheric event. In a rain-slicked alley, our hero stares into the abyss. His single red eye pulses with a faint, eerie light. Sensing the massive electrical current surging above, he recognizes this primal, untamed force instantly. This is not just weather, it is an anomaly. The spiritual energy is converging with terrifying intent. Someone or something is harvesting the sky. His gaze locks onto a distant, storm-shrouded mountain peak. Lightning hammers the summit like the wrath of the gods. That is the epicenter. No turning back. Luis lunges into the deluge, blurring across rooftops as he races toward the heart of the tempest. At Mount Yang base, his system pings a grim warning. A high-level pollution zone has been detected. The mountain's former glory is gone. Where lush life once thrived, only a graveyard remains. Skeletal trees and scattered remains litter the landscape. Then a new notification flashes across his vision. Contamination levels unknown. Undeterred, Luis plunges deeper into the suffocating gloom of the woods. Even as the gale roars, his resolve remains unshakable. Suddenly, a colossal bolt of azure lightning strikes. The peak glows with blinding intensity. Target acquired. Meanwhile, at the Spiritual Association headquarters, high-ranking officers huddle in the command center, the air thick with palpable dread and tension. A massive blue energy vortex swirls on the main monitor, devouring the mountain peak in real time. An officer reports that the danger levels at Mount Yang are spiking at an impossible rate. He demands an immediate total lockdown and a reclassification of the area as a hazard zone. The grim-faced leader agrees, ordering Mara to abandon her current mission and report on the ground situation. Mara delivers the crushing blow. The mountain is unreachable. The electrical discharge is far too unstable. One wrong move could trigger a massive explosion. The area is officially branded a Level A threat. But the nightmare is just beginning. The situation is deteriorating faster than they can react. Mara warns that if this growth continues, Mount Yang will hit level S, triggering a total emergency. She admits the terrifying truth: neither she nor her elite scouts can survive even approaching the perimeter. Panic ripples through the room as the data confirms the worst. It is a literal suicide mission. Death is guaranteed for any who enter. Even the strongest practitioners would be turned to ash instantly. Security forces order a complete blockade. Mount Yang must be sealed off from the outside world. 24/7 patrols will guard every entrance. The leader nods. They have no other choice but containment. They will wait out the storm, hoping the energy dissipates before it consumes everything in its path. While the association cowers, believing the mountain is a death trap, Luis is already deep inside. Gigantic azure bolts rain down like celestial spears. The heavens scream in a violent fury. Yet he stands firm, cloaked in a radiant golden aura from his advanced cultivation breathing technique. But survival is not the goal. To seize the purest lightning essence, he must reach the very summit. Fueled by dark memories, he knows these monsters are merely the appetizer for the true horrors coming. His current fire-based abilities will not cut it against the looming apocalypse. He needs more raw power. Surrounded by thunder, Luis realizes he cannot rely on weapons alone. His body must become the weapon. This is his chance to use the lightning to temper his flesh. He will not let it slip. The future holds nothing but a cold grave. His gaze ignites with a fierce golden hue as he draws his blazing blade. With a thunderous roar, he strikes the heart of a massive blue bolt. Wild lightning surges through his veins instantly. Agony rips through him, yet his stoic mask never cracks. His frame trembles under the violent, crushing pressure. As high-voltage currents sear his flesh, it feels like heaven itself is delivering a brutal divine sentence. The tempest lashes out in fury. Thunder screams through the clouds, demanding that he drop to his knees and surrender. Luis glares at the crumbling heavens. He wonders how can he possibly tame such a primal, savage force. A spark of genius hits. He centers himself, recalling a crucial system rule for power: touch the energy's core. A golden aura erupts as he triggers his golden salt breath. He's determined to shatter the storm with a roar. Luis charges, carving through azure bolts with his flaming steel. Golden light clashes against the wild, chaotic storm. Each step triggers a violent blast. Blood spills from his lips, but his eyes burn with unyielding main character energy. This is a suicidal bet, a direct dance with death. Finally, after a grueling and bloody battle, he conquers the summit. He drives his blade into the earth, cracking the rock at the storm's true center. The atmosphere here is terrifying. The lightning's raw pressure makes even drawing a single breath feel impossible. Luis feels the storm's bloodlust. It's no longer just pushing him, it's hunting him with pure murderous intent. The tempest gathers its ultimate wrath, unleashing a colossal white beam that screams directly toward him, a strike meant for total annihilation. Just as death approaches, his system finally flickers to life. It identifies a legendary lightning attribute and begins processing. Meanwhile, the city watches this divine spectacle in awe. From the highest skyscrapers, a man snaps photos, paralyzed by the sheer scale of the heavenly bolts. Another witness spots a lone silhouette on the peak and wonders if a god is being judged by heaven. The world vanishes in a blinding flash. When the radiance finally fades, our hero is still standing. He won. The system confirms his massive W. He has unlocked the refined divine thunder power. He can now summon heavenly bolts and rework his physiology. Plus, he earns 5 writing points for his trouble. Luis levitates, wreathed in blue sparks and golden light. He begins to grasp his new terrifying potential. This thunder attribute is a top-tier force, perfect for both crushing offense and absolute defense. Unlike his protective sun power, the thunder focuses on refining his very cells into something more powerful. He can turn his body into living violent energy. It's his ultimate spear and his unbreakable shield. Thunder isn't just about ruin, it represents rebirth. He feels the energy surging through his core. It reinforces his bones and muscles without a hint of pain. Then the system offers a legendary upgrade. The Punish Evil skill can double his critical hits. It asks if he'll spend his writing points to claim it. Luis weighs his next move. His first instinct is to channel this lightning directly into his blade, but he hesitates. Doing so might strengthen the sword, but it could corrupt the pure sun energy within. Mixing powers might shatter the weapon. Then a bold new thought strikes him as he looks at his hand. He lifts his right hand, gazing at it intensely. He'll implant the lightning attribute directly into his own flesh. The system requests confirmation for this wild choice. A confident smirk plays on his lips as he gives the order. Instantly, the wild blue arcs dancing in the air converge on his palm, draining the storm's power dry. By dawn, the peak of Mount Yang is a scarred wasteland. The immediate threat has finally vanished. Down by the cliffs, Mara and Major Heine stand over a row of grim body bags. Mara reports that the contamination levels plummeted from lethal to low in just 3 short hours. The shift was inexplicable and incredibly fast, leaving the military baffled by the sudden change. Static still crackles in the breeze. Major Heine listens closely and quickly realizes what happened. Someone was up there, a seeker. Mara freezes, shocked that anyone could survive such a nightmare. She searches for tracks, but the torrential downpour has scrubbed the mountainside clean. She deduces the mystery person left around 8 last night. The Major nods, confirming the timeline. The anomaly began at 6 and the army locked the site by 7. This seeker must have climbed early. Their sensors recorded the danger hitting absolute maximum levels. Whoever was up there is a total monster. Just after 8, the energy levels bottomed out, peaking with terrifying intensity where the lightning had struck hardest. The Major crafts a theory this seeker didn't just survive the storm, he likely awakened a monstrous new power. It's a lightning-based ability. In other words, he's the primary catalyst for this chaotic atmospheric shift, an epic asset or a lethal threat. Wildcards like him are the deadliest because their loyalty is a total mystery. Mara nods, her face pale. If a Titan with that power turns villain, the fallout would be absolutely catastrophic. They need to track him down fast. Miles away, our hero is completely oblivious to the military manhunt closing in. Luis is just chilling on his sofa. Suddenly, he lets out a heavy, bone-weary sigh. Meanwhile, back at the command center, Major Heine makes a final, ruthless call. He glares at his squad and snaps a firm order: locate this individual immediately, no matter the cost. He dubs the target with a temporary codename Tyrant. The operation on Mount Yang begins without a second's delay. The military banked on the Practitioners Association to bring this mysterious tyrant into the fold as soon as possible. For now, they've classified the incident as top secret, while launching their own deep dive investigation. At the Rain-Slicked Summit, the association leader informs Major Heine that a top-tier pioneer is already moving to intercept the target. Suddenly, he wheels around toward Mara. He demands her report on the spot. Caught totally off guard, Mara's heart begins to hammer against her ribs. Forced to freestyle, she blurs facts with fiction, linking the current chaos to the pioneer, who recently purged the university's corrupted zone. Internally, she is absolutely losing it. Terrified her secret deal with Luis will leak, she claims he's a ghost and incredibly difficult to track. She swears she successfully identified the carcass of a mutant rabbit possessing the Yang attribute. She vows to get close to Luis to uncover how he actually cracked the university's spirit gate. She prays her web of lies holds up. Major Heine listens with a cold, piercing gaze. He weighs the potential of a Yang attribute pioneer before finally nodding in approval. He praises her as a brilliant young talent. Mara snaps a crisp, formal salute. She claims she's just doing her duty. As the briefing wraps, the Major drops the hammer. The government will spin this as a natural disaster to keep the public from panicking. They can't risk spiritual energy intel leaking online and being weaponized by the wrong people. As the brass continues their chatter, Mara exhales a long breath. The interrogation is finally over. Scene shift. Back at home, our protagonist activates the Golden Sun breathing technique. He flash dries his hoodie, slips it back on, and begins inspecting the dramatic changes in his body. The change is instant. Blue sparks dance across his right hand, crackling with raw, untapped intensity. Small blue bolts have turned that limb into his ultimate weapon. The power surge is absolutely massive. He flexes his fingers, conjuring orbs of pure electricity as he feels his limits shattering. He's on the verge of a breakthrough. Remarkably, that savage thunder has now become completely docile. It flows through his veins like a loyal pet, giving him total unrivaled control over the element. This is nothing like the agonizing pain he suffered when his Yang attribute first awakened. He wonders if the energy mellows out upon integration. The system had made a promise. This power deals double damage to those twisted demonic freaks. Luis is itching to test it out. Suddenly, a sharp ping from his phone breaks his focus. He grabs the device, intrigued. He'd set custom alerts after the last mess. To a pioneer, every crisis is a chance to level up, even if it means dancing with death. He checks the screen and sees the breaking news. A massive blast at a chemical plant has triggered a wave of contamination across the city. Officials claim 0 casualties and tell everyone to stay chill, but Luis isn't buying it. A disaster this huge is never that simple. He dives into online forums to see what witnesses saw. People describe a bone-chilling sensation creeping over their skin, something they just can't explain. In the comments, users are whispering about eerie, dark shadows haunting the ruins of the disaster site. A user wondered if that was a chilling demonic aura. Shockingly, the entire chat agreed. Fear poisoned every comment. When Luis saw those words, his soul recoiled. That description, it felt terrifyingly familiar. Suddenly, a traumatic flashback from his past life erupted a blood-drenched hand. A distorted face and his former self frozen in terror. A crimson demonic beast was charging. It pulverized everything. The thing was a revolting, multi-eyed monstrosity, resembling a massive rat. Luis knew this nightmare too well. Back in the present, his gaze turned dangerously sharp. He remembered their true essence. Once plants or animals awakened, their strength mutated into madness. They became bloodthirsty predators that slaughtered for fun, stalking exclusively under the cover of darkness. A chilling realization dawned on him. This new threat was 100 times deadlier than that rabbit. Without intervention, the body count would rise. The night grew darker as a storm erupted. Torrential rain hammered the empty pavement, drowning out the world. The traffic light finally flickered. Suddenly, a streak of light blurred across the wet asphalt. The Annihilation Squad was moving. Hooded figures surged through the city at supernatural speeds, relentless in their high-stakes pursuit. An operative radioed headquarters immediately. Anomaly 7, codename Candlelight Night, was finally in their sights. But the objective vanished instantly. It possessed a terrifying ability to fuse with the shadows. Tracking it was a lost cause. It hissed before devouring anyone who drew too close. Lightning split the sky as the squad landed on a high-rise rooftop. Their captain, a scarred man with pale hair, surveyed the dark city. He knew the storm favored the beast and spoke with authority. They couldn't allow this nightmare to spread. Inside a high-tech command center, an operator finally locked onto the critical data stream for File 7. The analysis was instant. This was a high-priority seek and destroy mission that couldn't wait. With a tight 12-hour deadline, headquarters deployed the destroyer squad to hunt down the target. Prioritizing team survival, the elite unit resumed the chase, leaping across the city's rain-slicked skyline. Moving like ghosts through the downpour, the leader halted to scan a glowing holographic map. Angry red markers flickered across the display, each signaling a deadly anomaly terrorizing the district. A 12-hour window was dangerously slow, yet it was the best headquarters could provide. This massive nation was drowning in anomalies that pushed even their peak technology to the limit. As the squad closed in on the last known coordinates, a fresh warning flashed from command. An operator reported that Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association agents were already patrolling the hot zone. Mara's profile appeared on-screen as they explained her team was currently monitoring the local pioneers. The leader acknowledged the intel, deciding to contact her since they might need her legendary strength. He noted her incredible reputation just as Mara and her hooded squad materialized from the shadows. Perched on a towering rooftop, she stared down at the destroyer squad with total confidence. With a casual smirk, she asked if they were the ones responsible for her unwanted overtime. The squad leader bristled at her playful tone, keeping his response cold and professional. He warned that the Candle Night anomaly was devouring civilians. This was no mere extra shift. One of Mara's subordinates snapped back to defend her, but she simply turned her back. Losing all interest, she scoffed that if the squad was so elite, they could handle it alone. With a dismissive wave, she ordered her unit, the Yin Squad, to begin their retreat. As they walked away, her subordinates whispered about their commander's notoriously fierce temperament. While one worried, another defended her, knowing every mission she took was a dance with death. Panicked, the destroyer leader shouted after her, swallowing his pride to beg for her assistance. He detailed the horror of Candle Night, admitting they were blind without Mara's elite tracking skills. Without her eyes, his team was at a fatal disadvantage. He laid the truth bare to convince her. If they failed, the entire city was doomed. With the alliance sealed, they prepared for war. Now united, both teams braced against the rain-lashed roof, ready for the final showdown. Mara entered a deep trance as a sphere of brilliant azure energy coalesced in her palm. Target locked, she announced as a pulse of light exploded outward to scan the ruins. The shockwave exposed the nightmare hiding within the rotting guts of a nearby chemical factory. There it was, a grotesque, multi-eyed rat thing gorging itself in the suffocating darkness. The records were right. It was a damp-dwelling predator with a lethal taste for human flesh. With the monster identified, Mara barked the order to initiate their high-stakes joint operation. But the beast's supernatural senses were razor-sharp, catching the hunter's scent in an instant. It lunged into the air, narrowly dodging a strike that shattered the concrete beneath it. "It's seen us," a soldier screamed, ordering the squad to fan out and surround the target. They moved like lightning, their tactical cloaks blurring into the rain as they took positions. Closing the trap, they roared in unison, ready to tear the creature limb from limb. One warrior charged, unleashing a devastating blow that sent the beast crashing into the debris. But the impact triggered a mutation. The monster's body began to warp and grow. Bloody gashes tore open as obsidian spikes erupted from its spine with a soul-piercing shriek. The creature counterattacked, conjuring a vortex of dark energy that threatened to swallow them whole. Mara screamed for the teams to dodge the sonic wave, but her warning was too late. A massive sonic boom erupted, sending squad members flying like ragdolls through the air. As the leader tumbled off the roof, the monster prepared a final lethal move to finish them. Gravity claimed him as he crashed onto the pavement. An ally rushed to help. The leader stayed conscious, explaining that a split-second retreat saved his bones from shattering. He knew this level of danger was insane. If that beast stayed in the city, total disaster was inevitable. Suddenly, the scene shifts. As the tides of battle turned, the rodent began a grotesque evolution. Its throat flared with a sickening emerald glow, spewing a vile, corrosive sludge that choked the air with lethal smog. It then melted the concrete to carve an escape tunnel. One of Mara's elite teammates shouted a warning about the monster's decaying touch. Destruction followed its path. Mara calmly noted her squad lacked the raw power for a head-on clash, yet she commanded them to stay sharp without hitting the slayers. Their mission was purely intel and strategy. Meanwhile, a slayer gripped his dagger, ready to intercept the beast. Suddenly, twin crimson eyes flickered threateningly in the shadows. The monster lunged, barely dodging a lethal strike from the hunters. Boiling with rage, the squad leader roared, "Don't let that freak get away." The rat bolted through the streets, hooded hunters hot on its heels. Watching from a high-rise, Mara stood with her crew. Suddenly, she sensed a sharp chill. As the creature's spiritual pressure spiked, she intuited that something massive was about to go down. She benched her team, tracking the target solo. The high-speed chase led them straight into a pitch-black, decaying warehouse. Mara prepped an area scan. The Slayer captain spotted the new association tech on her wrist, and she confirmed it was the latest gear. Usually a squad handles 50 energy units tops. The gauge read 48, but then the sensor went absolutely berserk. Numbers surged past 80 in seconds. Mara screamed that the energy levels were hitting critical instability. Right then, a massive shadow with glowing red eyes loomed over the rafters. It was a setup. Mara realized the truth instantly, and horror washed over her face. They weren't alone. Suddenly, another twisted face spawned right behind them. The Slayer captain's cool evaporated as he panicked. Shouting for a total retreat, Mara took charge, pointing toward the main exit, to flush the hidden enemy out. She blasted through the debris with an energy burst, urging everyone to follow. But at the finish line, Mara collapsed, screaming in pure agony. An invisible neurotoxin had fried her senses. Within seconds, she was isolated, in a sickly green void. Her cries for her team were met with silence. They were close, yet the poison blinded them to her presence. The puzzle pieces finally clicked, unveiling the true scale of the trap. That rat had lured them here on purpose, to the lair of a true predator, a giant serpent she had only vaguely sensed before. As if on cue, the armored skull of a shadow snake with emerald eyes materialized. The rat was just the bait. This creature's black mist was a lethal poison they'd been inhaling since arrival. This silent killer was paralyzing them while siphoning their spiritual reserves. Mara felt her mana hitting zero. She was done for. Slumping to the floor, she despaired at the creature's terrifying intellect, realizing they were just playthings. She closed her eyes, accepting the end. But then the atmosphere shifted. Through the green gloom, a spear of light pierced through. From above, a flicker of hope ignited in her chest. Suddenly, the roof detonated, and blinding radiance flooded the room. Her eyes widened as a figure descended. It was Luis. He landed perfectly amidst the rubble, a hooded silhouette against the divine light. Streaming from above, he faced the serpent instantly, labeling it a dark attribute beast. Then without a word, the snake struck with massive fangs. Luis blurred past the attack, ending up nose to nose with the rat creature. As the two monsters closed in, the full trap became clear. Then he made his move. Luis let the rat sink its teeth into his shoulder blood, spraying everywhere. Right then, their deadly game became clear. One bait, one killer. A mocking smirk played on his lips at the beast. He taunted it, asking if it loved to bite. Suddenly, a blinding flash of blue lightning erupted from his core. Unleashing his newfound aura, he dared the creature to taste his thunder. With a free hand, he pivoted, blasting a massive beam of golden solar energy straight at the slithering serpent, crackling with electricity. Tossing the dazed rat aside, he zeroed in on the snake. He unleashed a torrent of golden flames, daring the beast to survive the heat. With a deafening roar, the serpent lunged its massive jaws wide open. His reflexes were inhuman. Dodging the strike, he spun through the air, his golden blade slicing the atmosphere. Landing gracefully, he locked eyes with the monster and coldly muttered, "Take a look at my blade." The creature sensed the threat. Seeing the runes glow, it cautiously pulled back, hesitating. That hesitation was all he needed. Luis leaped back into the sky, preparing a devastating direct strike. Aiming for the serpent's face, his sword surged with crackling sapphire blue lightning. The collision shook the entire area, but the outcome was bizarre. Instead of a crushed skull, its head split down the middle, a fresh, identical head, emerging as if it were shedding skin. Stunned, Luis landed as the old head tore away completely. The outer layer sloughed off, revealing a fully regenerated monster. A sinister green light pulsed rhythmically within its throat. He realized this was far from over. The beast let out a feral, furious roar, as the surrounding electricity intensified, supercharging its shadowy, malevolent power. As the monster writhed, Luis kept his cool. He saw through it. The snake's dark aura eclipsed that of the Candlenight Rat. His strategy from the previous clash had worked perfectly. He had suppressed his flames using his blade only to funnel lightning directly into the beast's core. It was clear now this serpent was infinitely more lethal and evolved than its rat companion. Suddenly, a sharp sting flared in his shoulder. The rat's bite from earlier was starting to react. Strange purple serpent scales began sprouting from the wound, creeping across his skin. Luis caught on instantly. Just as he feared, these were highly intelligent mutated species. The toxin from that bite was a silent killer designed to paralyze its victims completely. Though the pain was searing, his golden sun breathing technique was already fighting back inside. Counteracting the poison, Luis felt his own powers surging, pushing back against the deadly infection. The fusion of yang flames and thunder acted as a natural alarm, pinpointing the damage. This allowed him to counter instantly. He knew he was lucky. For anyone else, this stealthy toxin would be a death sentence. This monster likely grew through endless ambushes. He envisioned its lair probably overflowing with the skulls of its many unfortunate victims. Using the rat as bait, they were a lethal trap even for high-level pioneers. That explained the missing persons. But the game was over. Watching the massive skeleton crumble into ash within the flames, Luis knew this reign of terror was finally finished. Satisfied, he felt his inner fire burn bright. The triple critical strike from his thunder power had secured his victory. He was now certain that his combat prowess could stand toe-to-toe with elite pioneers. He stood in silence as the flames devoured his foe. He turned to leave but stopped. He reached out as if sensing something invisible nearby. His eyes narrowed. He wasn't alone. A figure suddenly stumbled out from the thick smoke. It was Mara, coughing and covered in soot but alive. As the haze cleared, he saw her squad. They were all unconscious around her. Recognizing her as an association agent, he coldly told her to stop faking it. Her playing dead act needed way more practice. She was floored. Utterly embarrassed, Mara hid her face as she realized this was the legendary pioneer she'd been tracking. She quickly tried to cook up an excuse. She kept insisting the scent had woken her, but Luis wasn't buying the act. He coolly pointed out that while her allies were completely drained, she still held a secret spiritual reserve for protection. If she were truly unconscious, she wouldn't have sensed a thing. Caught off guard and speechless, Mara could only stammer a clumsy thank you. Internally, she was floored. He'd sensed the hidden energy she'd tried so hard to mask. She couldn't fathom how this man soloed both the Titan rat and the serpent. Seeing her shock, Luis's tone softened. He told her there was no need to hide. All he requested was honesty and total silence regarding his identity. After confirming her squad was finally out of the woods, he noted the late hour and prepared to leave. Mara tried to call out, but he was already gone. Spoilers would ruin the surprise he teased before leaping through the factory roof and vanishing into the midnight sky. A true phantom of the night, guys. Let's keep going. Almost forgot this girl is definitely falling for him. Gliding across the city's rooftops, Luis replayed the battle in his head. He felt relieved that Mara didn't try to claim the monster's tainted dark core. He also wondered why he couldn't absorb that foul energy himself. Perhaps it had just evaporated, or his body instinctively rejected the filth, so he pushed the thought aside for later. Back at the hollowed-out factory, Mara stood in silence. She gazed up at the moonlit gap where Luis had disappeared, sighing with a touch of regret. She hadn't even seen his face, and she felt a wave of self-doubt about her own strength. But the quiet moment was brief. Snapping back into leader mode, she marched toward the unconscious destroyer squad captain. She gave him a rough shake, demanding he wake up. He groaned awake. Battered and dazed, his first instinct was pure terror. He lunged up, screaming about an ambush. Mara just watched him with a cold, calm gaze. Soon, he and the rest of the squad realized why she was so chill. Before them lay the massive charred skeleton of the serpent. Stunned, the leader demanded answers. Where did this overwhelming young energy come from? Mara calmly replied that a powerful pioneer had saved them, spinning a carefully crafted story. She claimed this pioneer was likely their original target, a high-level Yang master who just happened to show up at the perfect time. The squad was speechless. One man had wiped out both beasts. Mara dropped another bombshell. He wasn't some recruit. He had tracked her down, making him even more of an enigma. Meanwhile, the destroyer captain got back to business, searching for the rat's remains. He unleashed a wave of green energy to clear the rubble, reminding everyone to secure the samples for the association. As the cleanup began, the leader used an orb to collect the dark fragments. Suddenly, he stepped on a piece of debris that erupted in a violent flash of blue electricity. He recoiled, howling in pain. Mara's eyes widened in shock. A new mystery had surfaced. The rat's carcass was still pulsing, with residual lightning. The squad leader turned to Mara, his expression darkening as he questioned her report. She'd said Luis was a Yang master, but this lethal electrical discharge pointed to something else entirely. Both leaders knelt to inspect the electrified remains. Mara was stunned by the intensity of the leftover sparks, confirming this was a top-tier ability. This led the captain to a new theory. Maybe two legendary pioneers had appeared, each taking down a monster before vanishing together. But Mara knew the truth. It wasn't two people. She struggled to process the impossible reality as she pictured Luis clearly, wielding crackling blue lightning in one hand and blazing golden flames in the other. No one would believe it. One high-level attribute is rare, but holding two, that's unheard of. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The serpent's scorched bones were the work of a flame walker, while the rat's electrified body bore the mark of a thunder tyrant. The team stood there paralyzed. wondering what kind of monster Luis actually was. As association reinforcements flooded the scene, Mara felt the suffocating weight finally lift from her chest. She thanked her lucky stars for keeping her team outside. Any longer, and they would have been marked MIA. A grim realization washed over her as she processed the cold, hard truth. This rescue squad wasn't here to save anyone. They were sent to collect corpses. Suddenly, her two subordinates previously knocked out by lethal snake venom finally blinked back to consciousness. Seeing their captain alive, they rushed over, tears of pure relief streaming down their faces. With the threat neutralized, the association's cleanup crew began their specialized task. What started as a desperate rescue mission shifted into a full-blown forensic investigation. High-tech scanners buzzed, analyzing residual spirit energy and battle scars to piece together the chaos. They were reconstructing the carnage to draft a priority report for the global headquarters. Moments later, an expert approached Mara and the destroyer leader with the preliminary data. Comparing the strike patterns and the brutalized monsters led them to one terrifying conclusion. There was a 99% chance this entire massacre was the work of just one man. The leaders traded looks of sheer disbelief as shocked whispers rippled through the surrounding units. Being saved by a pioneer wielding two distinct high-level powers was practically unheard of. To any ordinary pioneer, those beasts were a death sentence, yet this mystery man, he had absolutely obliterated them with a single, devastating strike. The power gap was insane. Sensing the gravity, Mara patched through to her superior with a critical update. Glancing up at the jagged hole in the ceiling, she finally connected the dots. That mysterious college student and the legendary tyrant were definitely the same person. The scene shifts to the Association HQ, where her superior absorbed the report in silence. After a heavy pause, he issued a new command. Mara had to stand down immediately. He noted the guy saved the team and secured the zone. These aren't the moves of a villain. He added that he didn't see eye to eye with Major Heine, so safety was the top priority. To avoid disrespecting such a beast-tier ally, Mara was ordered to cease all contact with the tyrant. Before hanging up, Mara dropped one final bombshell about their tracking progress. They'd traced him to Mount Yang, where his power levels were spiking exponentially. Intrigued, the superior pressed for details. Mara flashed back to their first intense encounter. She recalled an overwhelming aura there, thinking it might be some kind of spiritual relic. Given his dual high-level powers, that impossible theory was starting to look like reality. The superior was stunned, yet his mind was flooded with doubts. He questioned if a solo player could really hold a spirit weapon, remaining deeply skeptical. Even for a genius, snagging such a legendary item without major backing was unheard of. Plus, the team found no trace of a third energy signature common in manufactured gear. Mara cut in, explaining that the relic's aura was laced with a distinct Yang attribute. That one tiny detail changed the entire game. The superior's eyes nearly popped out as the terrifying implications hit him. If the weapon's attribute mirrored the user's own Yang energy, then he wasn't just wielding it, he was freaking forging it out of thin air. That meant he was a spirit creation realm cultivator, someone who could manifest their own power. That kind of strength was the stuff of legends. Mara was left absolutely speechless. Cultivators of that caliber are unicorns. There are barely more than 2 on the entire planet. But the superior considered an even more nightmare-inducing possibility. A third independent attribute would shatter the global power balance and send shockwaves through the world. Current research says different attributes clash violently inside a body, making more than 2 a death sentence. Until now, the existence of a pioneer wielding 3 spiritual attributes was nothing but a myth. If the tyrant truly held a soul weapon without a detectable third energy signature, things were complicated. This was actually a promising omen. The call ended abruptly, leaving the superior in a heavy silence. With one haunting thought, he prayed such a monstrous force would never turn against all of humanity. The scene shifts to Luis's apartment, where he sought refuge in a scalding hot shower after returning. He let the water rinse away the grime and exhaustion of combat before drying himself off completely. He pondered the world's fate, knowing less than 1 year remained before the great spiritual energy awakening. Yet vicious beasts and supernatural anomalies were already crawling out of the shadows more frequently than ever. He channeled his Yang attribute to dry his gear, his palm radiating a faint and golden glow. Staring at that light, he wondered how many secret masters were already tempering their souls in private. He recalled those thugs from the lava river, realizing that the veil between worlds was finally tearing. As the connection between the human body and spirit realm opened, people became instinctively more sensitive. Even without formal training, many rogue pioneers had already ascended to the rank of 1-star, ghostly action. The fact that the government used agents like Mara to scout wild talents like him was telling. It proved both sides were currently locked in a delicate dance of mutual observation and uneasy peace. Luis briefly considered Heine and Mara, concluding that for now, the monsters and factions remained stable. No major blood feuds had erupted between the various pioneer circles yet, as monsters stayed under control. But as he finished dressing, he knew this peace was fragile since the government already formed associations. They were keeping the public blind to the truth, a calculated strategy that Luis understood all too well. While rumors of weird events spread, the authorities walked a razor's edge to prevent a total meltdown. They aimed to shield humanity with subtle warnings, without triggering a global wave of absolute terror. Despite his recent triumphs, Luis's outlook on the global situation remained grim and deeply pessimistic. He knew the real nightmare was the government's hesitation to trigger a mass cultivation era officially. The risk of arming such a massive population with supernatural power was a massive ticking time bomb. Once the veil was lifted, society could easily fracture, spiraling into a vortex of chaos and death. In the face of a worldwide collapse, not even the official pioneers could contain the inevitable carnage. Adding monster invasions to internal civil wars would create a literal hell on earth for everyone involved. Luis had to admit the government's slow burn strategy wasn't entirely foolish, given the extreme stakes. Human panic could be far more lethal than any beast, but something else haunted his mind lately. The monsters were evolving at a terrifying rate, far outstripping his most dire and dark predictions. He analyzed the creatures he'd just slaughtered, seeing they were clear symptoms of dark attribute corruption. Specifically, it was the shadow attribute, a sinister branch of dark energy that felt wrong to him. The system flagged it as a natural enemy, a power he currently had zero hope of absorbing. Even worse, these monsters possessed eerie intelligence working in packs to trap and kill high-level pioneers. They viewed warriors as gourmet meals, though Luis knew these were still just the weaker appetizers. They were nothing compared to the country-crushing dark titans he remembered from his previous life's nightmare. Regardless, the brush with death he just survived served as a brutal wake-up call for him. Without his intervention, Yuju Shinjin and their entire squad would be nothing but corpses now. Yet a flicker of hope remained as he replayed the system's cryptic and strange analysis in his head. If dark energy was only temporarily locked, perhaps he could eventually bend that shadow power to his will. He audited his arsenal, the Golden Sun Breath, his Divine Thunder, and the Crimson Flame Blade. With 3 top-tier techniques and his 3-star ghostly action rank, few could match his might. He stood at the pinnacle of modern pioneers, yet a cold dread still lingered in his chest. Even with all this devastating might, he knew deep down it still wasn't enough to survive. His grim thoughts shattered as his phone buzzed. It was a call from his aunt surprising him. Luis listened as his aunt explained that his cousin was heading to the city for college. Fearing for the girl's safety, she begged him to let her crash at his place instead of some shady hotel. Luis barely remembered the girl. In his mind, she was just a total bookworm, a quiet straight-A student utterly obsessed with her grades. Her face was a complete blur. Still, he agreed, assuring his aunt that he had a spare bedroom ready for her. When he pressed for arrival details, his aunt just promised to text the info, letting the girl travel solo. Cut to a dimly lit room glowing only with the cold blue light of a computer monitor. Slender fingers flew across the keyboard. A mysterious figure in a dark hoodie hung up a call with their mother. It was Luis's aunt giving a final reminder to reach her cousin's apartment by tomorrow afternoon. After promising to bring some unique snacks, Yoshi politely signed off, claiming she still had work to finish. On her screen, a secret chat window stayed open, the Spiritual Energy Renewal Group. This was a high-level martial arts squad. Within the chat user, Yoshi officially announced her arrival in the city. She posted about staying at her cousin's place. Moments later, she clicked a new tab, and a viral rumor alert flashed. The infamous City of Death was trending again. 3 new people had vanished, all linked to the Pig Beast Challenge. The article featured a gruesome, blood-soaked photo. Yoshi's eyes narrowed. She recognized that spot instantly. Hangzhou. Her curiosity spiked. Just then, her mom walked in, checking if her bags were packed and ready to go. Yoshi nodded but mentioned she'd rather grab a hotel room to avoid being a burden to her cousin. Her mother insisted family was safer, practically ushering her toward the door. But before she stepped out, she gave one last warning: stay out of trouble and help around the house. Yoshi gave a calm, obedient nod. As the door clicked shut, she let out a long sigh. This visit was just another hurdle. She adjusted her glasses. A sharp, resolute glint flashed in her eyes. No matter who her cousin was, he couldn't be tougher than a literal monster. Dealing with family was nothing compared to a death match. The next day, under a crystal-clear sky, a dark-haired girl in glasses stood lugging her suitcase toward a tall apartment complex. She double-checked her phone screen, then stared up at the concrete tower. "This must be it," she whispered. The moment of truth had arrived. Just then, Yoshi spotted someone. She saw Luis stepping out with a grocery bag. Without missing a beat, she called out across the pavement. "Are you my cousin?" Luis froze in his tracks, blindsided. He scanned her face before giving a wary response. "Yoshi," he asked, but deep down he was shook. If she hadn't spoken up first, he wouldn't have known her in a million years. An awkward, suffocating silence settled over them. Shortly, after they moved inside, they sat on the couch, desperately trying to maintain some polite small talk. Luis asked if she was here for some summer camp. She played it cool and nodded naturally. He nodded, offering his help with anything she might need. Then he handed over the key to her new room, located right across from his own, before making a quiet exit. As he walked away, Yoshi let out a breath she'd been holding. Her cousin seemed chill, not the type to stick his nose in her business. But Luis wasn't clueless. From the second she sat down, he felt something off. A faint, yet unmistakable spiritual aura was leaking from her. It was weak, sure, but definitely there. Red flags were popping up everywhere. The verdict was clear. Yoshi was a pioneer. That summer camp story was nothing but a cover-up. She was here for something else. Meanwhile, locked in her room, Yoshi proved him right. She whipped out her phone and fired off a text to her martial arts vanguard group, reporting that her cousin was harmless and wouldn't be an issue, at least for now. The chat quickly shifted to the legendary Lava River pioneer. Yoshi typed out a cautious warning. Watch your backs. The real monsters are still lurking in the shadows. They agreed to wait for her signal. She logged off, deciding to pause her cultivation. If Luis saw anything weird, her secret would be blown. Fast forward 3 days and Luis realized something annoying. Rooming with his cousin was killing his gains. His deep meditation was constantly at risk. For instance, she'd stroll out of the bathroom in just a towel, totally nuking his focus. But that wasn't even the worst part. His breathing technique sparked a golden aura that was way too obvious. Keeping the secret was becoming impossible, especially with Josie's suspicious level of kindness. One night, she prepared a mouth-watering feast. She served everything with a chillingly calm smile. When Luis tried to help with the dishes, she immediately shut him down. She insisted it was the bare minimum she could do. Her act was flawless, too flawless, and her etiquette was perfect. That obsessive cleanliness felt totally uncanny to Luis. Still, he decided not to push back, thinking that, if he let her keep playing the perfect maid, she might eventually lower her guard. That's when he'd finally catch her in the act. During another dinner, the peaceful vibe was shattered when Josie's phone buzzed on the table. Both of them instantly locked eyes on the device. Seizing the moment, Luis played it cool and used the distraction to naturally excuse himself. He headed to his room to give her some privacy while his cousin simply gave a silent nod. As he walked away, Josie sat on her bed staring at the screen with a heavy, thoughtful expression. She picked up with a cold tone, confirming the intel. The great change of heaven and earth was set to trigger tomorrow at exactly 3 p.m. Without hesitation, she promised she'd be there. Little did she know, Luis was eavesdropping from his room, catching every single word, without any struggle. He heard everything. Josie was planning to meet other pioneers at the entrance of Soledad, a suburban town famous for internet rumors about an hour away. With his suspicions officially confirmed, he watched through the wall as his cousin's spiritual energy began to slowly surge and intensify. There was no doubt now she was a pioneer too. However, Luis still held a massive advantage. With Josie's current power level, there was zero chance she'd sense him monitoring her hidden talent. Honestly, it was wild. She's just an elementary student, yet she's already reached the 2-star high ghost realm. She was actually on the verge of another breakthrough. Luis couldn't help but wonder if this insane talent explained her weird personality. Suddenly, every piece of the puzzle clicked. That summer camp was just a total cap. Josie had sniffed out the incoming great change and planned to dive straight into the epicenter. Luis knew these events were legendary opportunities to snatch new techniques and skyrocket his own power. What kind of ability would emerge this time? Honestly, it didn't matter. Luis decided right then whatever power surfaced from that event would be his. Now that's the main character energy we love. Back to the story in the room across the hall. The cousin suddenly froze. A strange chill crawled up her spine like an invisible gaze was watching her. She scanned the area warily, but all she saw were the peaks glowing under the silver moonlight. Through the window. After a few seconds, she shrugged it off and continued her mission prep for tomorrow. The next day, Soledad was buzzing with activity. At the entrance, with mountains looming behind, Josie met a friend. The girl teased her, asking if her cousin was a hottie. Josie simply replied that he was a nice person, but looked totally mid and ordinary. Her friend let out a disappointed sigh. Just then, a redhead in a purple dress joined them, joking that Josie always thinks everyone is just an average person. With the squad almost ready, the redhead locked in. It was time to get serious for the mission. The leader noted they were only 6 today, explaining that some members' locations are always a complete mystery. Meanwhile, from a nearby cafe balcony, Luis was watching the entire scene with his blade resting beside him. Even though they tried to act low-key, it was obvious to him that the whole group was packed with power. The weakest was a 2-star high ghost, while the man who spoke earlier seemed to have already hit 3 stars. Luis realized this team was usually even more cracked, but their heavy hitter was a frequent ghoster. Suddenly, his gaze shifted toward the towering peaks surrounding the city. He narrowed his eyes, sensing that the real show was finally about to begin. And he wasn't wrong. At the mountaintop, the great change of heaven and earth finally erupted. A massive emerald vine descended from the clouds, looking like a legendary celestial beanstalk. This non-destructive event was exactly what the pioneers were thirsting for. The ultimate key to finally unraveling the secrets of this mysterious new world. Deep within the mist-shrouded peaks, Yoshi's squad witnessed the world's twisted evolution firsthand. They stood paralyzed before a staggering sight. Their crimson-haired leader's eyes flared, confirming this was their ultimate prize. A colossal throbbing vine loomed ahead, but in an instant, their wonder curdled into pure, unadulterated dread. Yoshi's boldest teammate suddenly turned ghost white. Shaking uncontrollably, she begged the group to turn back immediately. She confessed, the mere sight of that plant triggered a primal terror. The leader quickly pressed for details. She recalled dark forum rumors about elite pioneers, warriors far stronger than their own humble squad. During the vine's last awakening, some of those legends had dared to touch the plant. Their end was nightmarish. Their skeletons were now fused into the roots of a corrupted, shadowy version of it. Clutching her head in agony, she feared they'd be next. Suddenly, reality itself began to warp around them. The misty mountains vanished. Now they were imprisoned within a pulsating cavern of raw crimson flesh. Squirming organic tentacles carpeted the floor, each one twitching with a life of its own. It was a horrific premonition of their own demise. Then in a blink, they were back on the trail. Still shrouded in fog, her body wouldn't stop shaking. She had originally accepted the risks of being a pioneer. She vowed to never look back, but facing this monstrosity was a whole different level of hell. Pure terror paralyzed her. Her instincts screamed that this was a high-level mutation beyond their wildest nightmares. This unknown beast was a freak of nature. With tear-filled eyes, she admitted she wasn't ready to die. She wanted to surrender. Yoshi and the leader looked at her with heavy hearts, feeling that same crushing pressure. A suffocating aura radiated from the plant. Yoshi struggled to put the sickening sensation into words. It felt like an absolute void, as if time itself had devoured every ounce of life nearby. Only a hollow shell remained. That was the source of their dread. They soon reached a grim realization. This green giant wasn't a plant at all. It was a parasite hungry for their very life force. As her friend spiraled into panic, Yoshi grabbed her hand with a fierce, unwavering grip. She reminded her that the martial pioneer's path demands facing death head-on without ever flinching. Meanwhile, hidden from view, Luis watched the entire drama unfold from a nearby cliffside. He could sense the suffocating death energy too. Of all the monsters he'd hunted, this thing felt the foulest. Excluding those with dark attributes, this creature was the most revolting thing he'd ever encountered. Yet he had to respect their guts just for daring to cultivate in such a godforsaken place. He studied the creature closely and noticed something that made his skin crawl. Though a plant should symbolize life, this thing felt utterly dead, a hollow shell masquerading as a living being. Its spiritual energy had vanished, and its surface was caked in the dried blood of past victims. Skeletal remains clung to its vines. Back with the squad, Yoshi finally took command. Standing at the cliff's edge, she spoke with absolute authority, rallying her shaken teammates. "We're out of time," she declared. Understanding the risk, she proposed a safer tactical approach. Instead of a direct assault, they would analyze its energy while cultivating from a safe distance. Yoshi perched high on a massive branch, encasing herself in a protective sphere of shimmering blue spiritual energy. From his vantage point, Luis tracked every move. He was genuinely impressed by their tactical caution. They were at the perfect range to cultivate, without aggroing the beast. He even gave props to his cousin. The star student had found the sweet spot, not too cowardly but not recklessly close either. As Yoshi deepened her meditation, the swirling spiritual energy began to hum with increasing intensity. Luis's eyes narrowed in shock. Yoshi was on the verge of a massive breakthrough. She was ascending to the 3-star realm. Luis couldn't help but be floored by such raw talent. Suddenly, a blinding flash of blue light erupted. Yoshi shattered her limits, successfully reaching the next level. Her teammates stood in awe of the sheer power radiating from her. But there was a catch. The breakthrough sent a massive shockwave through the forest. Deep in the woods, something ancient stirred. Dormant roots began to writhe underground, glowing an eerie green as the earth itself began to tremble. A pioneer whipped around, eyes wide with terror as movement lurked nearby. Absolute panic instantly ignited. The monstrous creeper awakened its brutal tentacles, erupting from the earth in a sudden violent ambush. Slimy green tendrils lunged from the soil, snaring 2 pioneers before they could even blink. The squad scrambled in sheer horror, while their captured allies shrieked in bone-chilling desperation. "Run," they wailed, fearing certain death. The scarlet-haired leader immediately pinpointed the catastrophe's origin. Josie's spiritual breakthrough had surged too violently, acting as a beacon for the beast. Suddenly, deep emerald tentacles began constricting around the protective energy sphere. Although Josie's shimmering barrier still held, her recent breakthrough had left the shield dangerously fragile. The leader knew the stakes. If that titanic nightmare fully encased them, its lethal aura would siphon their life force instantly. Under crushing pressure, Josie's light shield began to fracture as chaos engulfed the battlefield. The redhead commander tried dragging her petrified friend to safety, but the girl's frantic screams filled the air. She begged them not to ditch Josie. Furious and cornered, the leader snapped back, demanding what they could possibly do. With repressed rage, she asked if her own soul power was the price. Must she sacrifice her very life just so Josie could successfully rank up? Amidst the madness, she tried reasoning with a teammate, but he offered only cold calculation. He insisted they ditch Josie to survive. To him, survival was a brutal twist of fate. If they didn't flee now, they'd all be dragged into the grave with her. He reminded the leader they were mere strangers, brought together by nothing but sheer coincidence. He claimed she was letting her emotions cloud her judgment. But those cold words only fueled her fire. The leader shoved him, vowing never to betray her comrade, even if it meant defying the group's escape route. Meanwhile, high above on the cliff, Luis watched the carnage unfold. He knew his cousin, a mere student, underestimated this lethal peril. Trapped in a weakened, meditative state, the monster's power was ghastly. Saving her seemed almost impossible. Facing that creature head-on was a gamble, but with tentacles crushing the barrier, time had vanished. Luis clenched his fist as a golden aura detonated. He'd promised his aunt her safety, and a promise was ironclad. Suddenly, the redhead leader lunged into the mess of vines. Reaching her friend, she unleashed a savage kick that severed a tentacle. That victory was short-lived. Dozens of fresh vines erupted, ensnaring her completely and squeezing with lethal intent. Just as they prepared to crush her, Josie's defensive bubble finally shattered into pieces. Before the botanical nightmare could feast, Luis descended from the heavens like a bolt. He dove, carving 2 brilliant golden energy arcs with his blade while the crew watched. They stared in terror, screaming Josie's name. Then a colossal explosion shaped like a blazing phoenix plunged from the sky, slamming into the massive vines with world-shattering intensity. Luis landed gracefully amidst the clearing as a pillar of golden flames erupted from the dirt. He'd rescued both his cousin and the brave leader, glowing with a magnificent golden radiance. His sheer presence completely overwhelmed the death-dealing monster. The survivors watched in stunned silence. Stunned by the sight, the monster that nearly slaughtered them recoiled from the overwhelming spiritual pressure. Yang energy forced the tentacles to retreat, hissing as they dissolved under the light. Luis descended. Wrapped in that blinding glow, the pioneers shielded their eyes. The cold-hearted pragmatist who wanted to ditch, Josie was paralyzed with shock, wondering if this newcomer was also a pioneer. The redhead leader, equally dazed, instantly sensed the power's origin. It was the purest form of the Yang attribute. Only such power could drive back a life-devouring monster. The cynic felt his arrogance crumble. He'd always bragged about being a 3-star genius, reaching it in record time, a feat few could match. He knew Josie was gifted too. He could barely even track his movements. This stranger was operating on a completely different level of existence. Staring down at his own trembling palms, he looked up at the radiant figure on the cliff, feeling utterly small. He wondered for the first time if monsters like that actually existed. What did that make the rest of them? His raw, crushing power dwarfed everyone present. As Luis stood, bathed in golden light, reality itself began to shift. The system flared to life, detecting the mortal Cilantro's extreme attribute and automatically forging a legendary new technique. A holographic window flickered before him, revealing the name of his new mastery, Infinite Vitality, a god-tier art. It allowed him to instantly drain life force from his surroundings to mend fatal wounds at impossible speeds. As the plant's essence surged into his veins, a violent wave of revitalizing emerald energy completely engulfed Luis. Stunned by this wood attribute breakthrough, he realized something insane. As long as life flourished around him, he possessed an inexhaustible battery of power to exploit. He began siphoning the final drops of that cursed energy. Luis's system then ripped the core attribute from the vine. Desolation was a terrifying, soul-chilling power, capable of manifesting an aura that would instantly wither all nearby life. Yet Luis remained deathly calm. Standing within the swirling jade vortex, he fully assimilated the darkness. When his eyes finally snapped open, they burned with the same haunting green glow as the desolator vine. He stood tall in the silent clearing. The area was now a graveyard draped in a faint, toxic mist. And by dead, I mean the grass. And yeah, our MC officially has cilantro powers now. He finally understood why that vine only grew in this spot. Anywhere else, it would have turned the entire world into a wasteland by draining every living soul. For miles, its desolation attribute was straight up merciless. Its very nature was built for one thing: to ruthlessly steal the life force of others. But his grim reflections were cut short by a voice. The red-haired leader limped forward, her clothes in tatters, and her skin covered in nasty dark bruises. She thanked him repeatedly, knowing full well they'd be nothing but corpses without his clutch intervention. She even asked how they could ever repay him. Luis just gave a casual, disinterested wave of his hand. "We'll meet again," he muttered, before turning his back and vanishing into the shadows of the forest. In his mind, he wasn't playing the hero. He knew he only scored this massive upgrade because of them. It was their intel that led him to this jackpot. In reality, he was the one who won big. He couldn't care less about the petty pioneer drama. With a single explosive burst, Luis launched into the air. He disappeared, leaving the squad completely shell-shocked. He knew that true colors only show when life is on the line. A fractured team has 0 survival rate in this brutal new era. Back in the now silent clearing, the rookie girl and the scruffy-haired man watched the sky in total shock. "What do we do now?" she asked. The man replied with a bitter edge, asking if she regretted being a coward when it mattered most. The immediate nightmare was over, and Yoshi had reached level 3. The leader knew staying together was their only hope. Hours later, Yoshi's eyes slowly fluttered open, glowing with a piercing, intense shade of sapphire blue. As she emerged from her trance, the team rushed to her side, visibly relieved to see her still breathing. The guy who wanted to ditch her earlier was now suddenly praising the leader's incredible wisdom. However, another teammate was busy obsessing over the mysterious high-spec stranger who had single-handedly saved their skins. Still dazed, Yoshi asked for a status report only to realize several of her friends were still totally unconscious. As she stood up, a wave of oppressive, scorching heat hit her like a physical blow. It was the lingering yang attribute bleeding out from a nearby mutated tree. Even from this distance, the intensity of that power was suffocating. The scruffy-haired man stepped forward to fill her in. He began explaining the madness she'd missed. Later, back at her cousin's apartment, Yoshi was still reeling. She sat there trying to make sense of the absolute insanity that had unfolded that day. She honestly couldn't believe someone that overpowered actually walked the earth. Her teammate's words kept haunting her, as he described the mystery pioneer. Those invincible vines had been swatted away like they were nothing. That massive sky-high stalk had basically run away in fear. The man's sheer presence was just built different. He had saved her, but a chilling realization about that vine started to settle in her mind. She remained unnervingly composed. It was a chilling testament that her aura still gripped the surroundings even after she had vanished. Later that evening, as she swung her apartment door open, a sudden jolt of surprise hit her. Luis was standing there. He immediately clocked her deathly paleness, but she quickly masked it with a forced, shaky smile. To kill his suspicion, she brushed it off as simple burnout from a long day. Luis bought the lie without pressing further. He suggested she crash early and offered to order takeout. She agreed. Back in her room, the crushing weight of being a pioneer finally sank in. She was utterly drained, feeling more wrecked than if she'd pulled several all-nighters. Yet a strange sense of relief washed over her. After all, her days as a normie were over. Dying from something as basic as insomnia was no longer a possibility. A harsh reality set in. In this twisted new world, a pioneer's life was a non-stop dance with death. She spared a brief thought for her cousin's quiet life, a peaceful existence that was now forever out of her reach. Her thoughts were cut short when a notification pinged in the pioneer group. The sender was Elver, the enigmatic powerhouse who almost never spoke. The text was ice cold. Report any sightings of that powerful man immediately. Elver's first ever post sent shockwaves through the group, instantly seizing Yossi's full attention. She logged her agreement, then typed back asking if the man who saved her was the same legend from the lava dragon disaster at the Black River. If so, why would he help them? The chat room exploded with theories. Someone leaked intel about a mysterious high-tier Yang attribute master. The post detailed his blinding solar technique, describing how a flash of incandescent white light had blasted the witness right out of the cavern. The author swore no other pioneer could touch that level of power, issuing a stern warning to everyone. If you run into this man, stay far away. Meanwhile, deep in the night, Luis slipped out silently on his bike. He banked on his cousin, letting her guard down after the day's chaos, giving him the perfect cover to vanish unnoticed. He moved with purpose. His mission: find a suitable vessel for his newly acquired desolation attribute. He knew this decaying power would synchronize perfectly with plant life. Under the silver moonlight, he pedaled through the night, plotting how to wield this fresh, dark energy. It was terrifyingly potent, a force rooted in pure decay and annihilation. He hesitated to fuse it directly into his body, fearing its malevolent nature would trigger a violent backlash, or clash with his purifying thunder attribute. Because of that, a separate vessel was the only play, just like that strange vine before. He theorized that the original monster was born when a normal plant mutated from the spiritual surge, birthing the desolation trait. With a calculated plan and a confident smirk, Luis knew exactly where to find his prize. He followed a moonlit trail into the heart of the forest park, ditching his bike to vanish into the trees. Bathed in the glow of the full moon, he waded through a field of luminous, shimmering wildflowers, searching for the one plant capable of tethering to his soul. He closed his eyes and focused. A vibrant green aura erupted from Luis, his spiritual pulse rippling through the woods and blanketing the flora. He felt a stir. A tidal wave of energy surged back from the greenery, but it lacked the bite he needed. Our protagonist pushed harder, flooding the area with mana while scanning the situation. He needed something more intense. Suddenly he froze. His attention was snatched by a specific point. There, amidst the tall grass, swayed a single white flower with a glowing heart. It felt like a siren's call. "Is it you?" he whispered, reaching out with a cautious hand. The moment his fingertip grazed it, the petals snapped shut aggressively, drinking in his spiritual essence. Moments later, the bloom unfurled again, looking smugly satisfied, like it just devoured a gourmet feast. Luis knelt before it, grinning. The plant's spiritual presence was undeniable and surprisingly fierce. It acted like a starved pup, devouring his energy and nuzzling his fingers for more. That's when he knew he'd found it. Out of everything in this forest, this tiny sprout had the strongest resonance with his aura, the ultimate host for the desolation attribute. He whispered to the flower that she was the chosen one, asking if she was ready. Without waiting, he unleashed an emerald vortex, focusing the energy entirely on the bloom. Right then, a system window flickered to life. Do you wish to forcibly implant the desolation attribute into this plant? Luis's eyes burned with a toxic green fire as he triggered the seal. Blinding light erupted from his palm. The bud began a grotesque evolution. Its petals unfurled, growing larger, more intricate, and terrifyingly powerful. The ritual concluded with a bone-chilling green flash. Luis reeled back from the sudden violent surge of power. The raw energy vibrating from the plant was insane. That humble white flower was gone forever. Its petals spiraled outward, reshaping themselves into a majestic, otherworldly lotus. Thick, glossy leaves sprouted, radiating a lethal emerald aura. The transformation immediately began warping reality. As the energy peaked, the flower unleashed a catastrophic wave of desolation. Roots clawed deep into the soil. They began feasting on the Earth's life force. The destruction was instant and absolute. The lush forest surrounding Luis withered into a graveyard. Trees crumbled, and the rich earth turned to ash. Luis watched paralyzed as the desolation attribute leveled everything. In a heartbeat, the energy had devoured half the woodland. Suddenly, the emerald glow flickered, and the flower shrank back down. Survival instinct kicked in. He had to move. This massive energy spike would definitely alert the association. He didn't hesitate, snatching the glowing plant and its roots from the dead dirt. This park was a death trap located right in the city's heart under constant surveillance. The association kept it under lockdown, terrified of common plants evolving into unpredictable supernatural threats. He'd sensed the red flags earlier, too many cameras, and an eerie, deserted silence. As he retreated with his lethal prize, Luis noticed a chilling detail. Even without soil, the flower was still breathing, sucking energy straight from the atmosphere. Its spiritual pressure didn't drop an inch. It was pure, unadulterated magic. To think only 5 minutes ago, it was just a random, insignificant wildflower. The realization hit him. By granting it the desolation attribute, he'd shattered its evolutionary limits. It was ascending into something legendary. But just as he turned to vanish, a deafening siren shattered the peace. Red emergency lights bathed the trees as a robotic voice boomed. Anomalous levels detected. High-level threat identified. Luis cursed under his breath. Even his insane speed hadn't been enough to ghost the sensors. Without wasting a second, he stashed his newly evolved desolation flower and bolted. Miles away, the same alarm was screaming inside. The Spiritual Energy Research Department. In the high-tech control room, total panic erupted among the staff. Technicians scrambled, shouting that the anomaly levels were spiking completely off the charts. The lockdown was instant. Every operative donned protective gear, swarmed the park, and sealed the perimeter. Soon after, a specialized squad in full hazmat suits breached the eerie silent woodland. The forest looked completely dead. One researcher checked his wristcom, and his face instantly paled. A level 30 reading. That is insane. The Magdalena University disaster only reached a level 10. Even the terrifying Black River lava dragon peaked at 25. This was on another level. Another frantic researcher noted that this park's spiritual levels usually never broke 10. While taking soil samples, one operative realized the humidity and temperature felt totally normal. Yet every single plant in the vicinity had been brutally sucked dry of its life essence. Seeking the source, the team leader pushed toward the center of the spiritual phenomenon. But as a rookie stepped toward the epicenter, a sharp voice cut through the air. A veteran investigator with gray hair and thick lenses barked a command to freeze. "Don't touch a thing," he growled. "This residual energy belongs to the deadly desolation attribute." He asked the group if they'd heard of the vine that recently plummeted from the heavens. The younger recruits exchanged confused looks, until one of them suddenly went ghost white. Pure horror washed over him as he realized exactly what the veteran was hinting at. The A-rank demon vine, the giant cilantro. The veteran nodded, confirming their worst nightmare. He projected a spectral image of the beast, surrounded by the trapped souls of its prey. Its power came from desolation, a parasitic ability that devours the life force of everything. The rookie who almost entered the dead zone scrambled back, gasping in cold sweat. He thanked the veteran profusely, realizing he had just narrowly escaped a certain death. The man explained that desolation-type plants create an absolute dead zone around them. He recalled a chilling case of a rotted ancient tree in a forbidden sector. That monstrosity could obliterate any nearby life in a literal heartbeat. He scanned the clearing. In this era of mutations, desolation is the ultimate peak. Only 2 cases existed until now, the ancient tree and the celestial vine. But a third had emerged. Suddenly a hand gripped his shoulder, shocking the team. It was Major Heine and his soldiers. Already briefed, he ordered the team into advanced gear. With Heine leading and Mara watching, the group ventured into the heart of the void. Their scanners whirred to life, but the data they spat out was completely baffling. They couldn't find the source, and the aura was fading at an impossible rate. It dropped from 30 to 25 in minutes, contradicting everything about the celestial vine. Two trackers emitting a soft blue glow began hunting for residual spiritual currents. By tracing those invisible threads, they finally pinpointed the exact point of origin. They stopped dead in their tracks. Both Heine and Mara realized the truth instantly. The desolation source had been unearthed. Someone had actually dug it up and stolen it. Stunned, a researcher asked how that was even possible. Heine remained silent. If someone survived a desolation dead zone to steal its core, their identity was crucial. Mara tapped her tablet and showed the Major a shocking discovery on the screen. It was a cross-referenced analysis from the National Administrative Department of Statistics. They had tracked movement patterns linked to all recent major spiritual mutations. One name linked both incidents. The screen displayed a clear photo of Luis. Heine stared at the image. He told Mara he'd send her all the intel on this kid. He was convinced this was the same pioneer she had encountered before. "The rest is up to your association," he said calmly. The scene shifts. 2 hours later, Mara stood alone among the withered flowers, her expression somber. Back in his apartment, Luis wore a faint smirk while sliding the flower of desolation into a vase. He dubbed it the obedient little white flower, certain his new attributes would let it thrive solo. Soon it had become a lethal combat asset, its humble appearance serving as the ultimate tactical camouflage. Chin resting on his palm, Luis pondered. In this twisted new reality, raw power just wouldn't cut it. True dominance relied on hidden trump cards. But his quiet night, that peace was about to shatter. His phone buzzed, flashing a name buried for 3 long years on the screen, the old man Elbert. It was Elbert, his day-one friend who vanished after joining the military. Luis didn't hesitate to answer. From the other end, Elbert's hype was real, inviting him to grab drinks at their legendary old hangout. He claimed to have a massive secret. Meanwhile, across the city, the vibes were far more sinister. Post-call, Elbert stood in a dim room, facing a high-ranking female officer marked by battle scars. Mara watched closely as Elbert made one request. If Luis wasn't their target, keep him safe. The red-headed officer's gaze was pure ice, as she dismissed his concerns without a second thought. Finish the mission, she commanded, her chilling tone, making the oxygen in the room feel heavy. She added that, if Luis failed the test, Elbert should view this purely as a friend's punishment. Inside a rowdy bar, Luis and Elbert slammed beer mugs together, celebrating a 3-year reunion. As they kicked back to catch up, Luis analyzed his friend, instantly picking up on a shift. Elbert's face was hardened, his posture screamed authority. The brutal grind of military life had changed him. Elbert began flexing stories of his service. But before he could pry into Luis's life, Luis cut him off with a simple update. Everything at the university was currently under control. Sipping in silence, Luis drifted into the abyss of his memories, recalling his brutal past life. In that chaotic era, he never saw Elbert again. His friend had been just another soldier on the front. He'd likely perished in some nameless battle. That dark realization hit Luis like a physical blow. Now he wondered, in this second chance, could he rewrite his friend's tragic fate? The talk flowed on. Suddenly, Elbert's vibe shifted. With deadly seriousness, he asked if Luis had seen anything paranormal. Zombies, monsters, straight-up movie stuff. Luis's internal alarms instantly went into high gear. It wasn't a shock that the brass knew about spiritual energy's return, but this blunt interrogation felt like a trap. Playing it cool, Luis acted totally clueless. He asked for clarification. Elbert sighed, explaining this wasn't an interrogation, it was a warning. He warned that soon things like degrees or bank accounts would become completely irrelevant. The global hierarchy was about to flip. Luis absorbed every word, his expression a blank mask. While staring into his glass, he pondered. He already knew the secret the military kept under wraps. The truth about the rebirth of spiritual energy was common knowledge to him. Suddenly, his gut was right, the army had flagged him. Elbert was sent specifically to smoke him out. Seeing Luis's silence, Elbert tried to ease the tension. Just keep quiet and you'll stay safe. But Luis saw right through the facade. He knew exactly what was moving in the shadows. Elbert was actually trying to protect him, even if it meant defying his direct military orders. Beneath the surface, his friend was leaking intel about the incoming storm that would change everything. Their talk was sliced short when Elbert's phone buzzed with an aggressive, urgent vibration. He answered, and a furious voice barked an order. Get to the extraction point in 10 minutes. Elbert snapped into a stiff military salute, apologizing as he scrambled to his feet. An emergency op had cropped up, meaning he couldn't stay. But as Elbert turned to leave, Luis dropped the mask. Coldly, he asked if this mission involved the spiritual energy rebirth. Take me with you, he demanded. Elbert froze, spinning around with a look of pure shock. Luis stood up, snatching his friend by the collar and locking eyes with him. Take me to your bosses, Luis ordered, making it clear the cat was finally out of the bag. Luis confesses he's clueless about the brass's intel, but one thing is certain, Elver's loyalty is ironclad. Then, he reveals his hand. He needs to witness exactly what kind of hell the military is facing. because he knows every piece fits into the global upheaval. While the Spiritual Energy Association handles the freaks, Luis is itching to uncover the military's secret role in this chaotic new world order. After a heavy pause, Elver finally caves. They soon pull up to a massive fortress, hidden deep within a jagged mountain pass. Military Spiritual Restricted Zone, 19. As they approach, Luis is hit by a wall of raw spiritual pressure. The concentration here is insane, dwarfing even the worst disaster zones. Suddenly, a squad of armed guards intercepts them. One soldier barks at Elver to fall in. After a tense security sweep, they usher Luis inside. Led through a sterile, blindingly lit corridor, they reach a colossal underground arena where chaos reigns. Soldiers are caught in a desperate struggle, unleashing waves of brilliant blue energy to contain a beast. The creature is a nightmare of pure shadow and spikes featuring a single hauntingly crimson eye. This monster isn't just taking hits, it's striking back with terrifying primal savagery. Suddenly, it discharges a lethal red beam that tears through the ranks, leaving screams in its wake. From an elevated vantage point, a stern red-headed officer tracks the carnage with cold robotic precision. As Luis is hauled before her, he instantly senses the creature's dual-layered power. She confirms his suspicions. It's a flawless fusion of darkness and fire, making it a predator of pure malice and heat. With her men falling, she introduces herself as Geraldine, a 3-star Ghost Realm officer. She spots Elver and snaps his name like a whip, forcing him into an immediate rigid salute. She demands to know why a civilian is in a restricted zone, cutting him off before he can blink. But then her gaze shifts. She tells him to forget it for now. The situation is critical and they need him in formation. Then she evaluates Luis with a skeptical eye. Detecting only a flicker of spirit energy, she briefly wonders if he's the legendary pioneer they're hunting. She scoffs at the thought and refocuses on the slaughter, but not without dropping a chilling warning. Since he's with Elver, she'll let him live, but in this dead zone, his survival is his own problem. Absolute silence on everything you see, she commands. Luis simply nods, unfazed by the threat. In an instant, Geraldine dives into the fray, hoisting a massive high-tech energy cannon. She rallies 2 soldiers who instantly ignite their bodies in a shroud of vibrant blue aura. As they charge into melee range, Geraldine levels her weapon and fires a devastating blast at the earth. A direct hit triggers a colossal explosion, but the smoke clears to reveal the monster still standing. It lets out a bone-chilling roar, its dark hide pulsating with a sinister glowing red light. The attack only pissed it off, forcing its mutation into a terrifying new overdrive. It swings a massive claw with lethal intent. A soldier screams a warning, barely managing a desperate block. The sheer force sends him flying. Geraldine immediately seizes control, ordering the squad to keep their distance. They have to put this thing down now, before its evolution reaches its final unstoppable form. Watching from the sidelines, Luis is genuinely floored by the soldiers' elite tactical performance. This is a unit forged in discipline, moving with a synergy that's almost poetic. He recognizes that kind of brotherhood, the power of unity, but his thoughts are shattered by a spike. The monster's power is skyrocketing at a terrifying rate. Luis bellows for everyone to get the hell out. He warns them they're outclassed, but his voice is swallowed by the deafening roar of the battlefield. Suddenly, the beast detonates a massive shockwave of purple energy, tossing soldiers aside like ragdolls. Geraldine refuses to retreat, ordering the alert status to be cranked to maximum. Deep within the restricted zone, the beast's eyes glow with pure malice. The mutation is finished. Its body is now one with the shadows, and that singular demonic red eye locks onto its prey. Elver. The soldier is frozen in terror as the beast marks him. Geraldine and Luis can only watch in horror. Terror grips the squad as they realize Elbert is staring death right in the face. With a surge of raw power, the beast lunges. An energy shockwave sends a soldier flying. Geraldine screams a warning. That C-rank shadow beast just mutated into a deadly B-rank threat. Their tactics are useless now. On the ground, the fallen soldier starts hacking up blood. Luis rushes over to stabilize him. Gasping for air, the man says he was channeling energy. He targeted the monster's collar, but its sudden evolution caused the device to detonate violently. Even while coughing up thick black fluid, he tries to stay brave for Luis's sake. He mentions the restricted zone officers, but Luis's gaze turns cold and his expression darkens. The harsh reality hits. Standard military weapons are absolutely useless against a monster like this. Geraldine drops her massive energy cannon. She steps in front of her squad with iron determination. One final desperate command that B-rank mutation must not escape this zone whatever the cost. As the team prepares for a final stand, Luis calmly steps into the spotlight. He blocks Geraldine's path. She demands an explanation, but Luis treats her like she's invisible. His eyes and hands ignite with blue light as arcs of pure electricity crackle around him. The air hums. The real fight starts now. Cloaked in blue lightning, Luis stares the beast down. Smirking, his eyes spark as he mockingly questions just how tough this monster really is. He lunges. His arm morphs into a blinding bolt of cerulean lightning as he strikes. The impact is insane. A massive blast of divine thunder swallows the beast whole, erupting with a shockwave so violent that nearby soldiers are tossed away like autumn leaves in a hurricane. Stunned, one soldier can't believe his eyes. That was supposed to be a B-rank monster. Even Geraldine couldn't take it solo. In total shock, Albert whips his head toward her. He asks if his friend is who he thinks. Geraldine just nods with a serious face. No mistake, it's the pioneer known as the Tyrant. Meanwhile, Luis stands unfazed before the beast. The monster smolders with residual heat clearly damaged. It's still standing but barely clinging to life. Seeing it still breathing, our protagonist reaches one simple conclusion. It's time to finish the job. He tells Geraldine and Albert to back off. Geraldine watches him, her mind racing with questions. Her squad needs high-level formations just to survive a B rank, and even then, they might die. Yet Luis is handling it solo. She's never seen lightning mastery this pure or this terrifying. Even as an elite pioneer herself, she can't fathom the true depths of Luis's godlike power. Spiritual energy has returned, and watching him charge his hand with more electricity is breathtaking. Pure awe fills her face. Suddenly, a massive storm of thunderous energy begins to swirl above. With one final step forward, Luis unleashes the full crushing weight of his elemental attribute. An absolute pillar of blue lightning erupts from the earth, incinerating the spot where the monster stood. It's like the heavens are judging the beast. This display truly earns him his codename. As the blinding light fades, Luis's eyes still flicker with the remnants of his power. He looks totally unfazed, as if deleting that monster was barely a warm-up exercise for him. The surviving soldiers are left speechless. One of them can't help but whisper in terror. He's literally trembling. If the monster's dark aura was scary, this is on another level. This destructive thunder power is terrifying. Finally, the dust starts to settle over the battlefield. Luis casually gives his buddy a thumbs-up, threat neutralized. Albert immediately sprints toward him. He yells with relief, saying Luis almost gave him a heart attack before playfully punching him. "I never knew my old pal was this cracked," he laughs. But then, the mood shifts. Albert apologizes, admitting he suspected Luis was a pioneer, but had strict orders to follow. Luis just shrugs it off. "Why so formal after 3 years?" he asks with a smirk. "I get it, our reunion was cut short anyway." Geraldine approaches with a faint smirk, offering a formal word of thanks and extending her hand. Lucho keeps it cool and accepts the gesture. He casually dismisses the praise, claiming he only moved to save his homie. That's when Geraldine officially introduces herself to the group. As the commanding guardian of Forbidden Area 019, she explains that Luis's heroic intervention requires a high-level official report. She requests his contact info, and Luis agrees without a second thought. Meanwhile, Elver watches the whole exchange in stunned silence, absolutely floored that this notoriously cold-blooded commander is showing such genuine respect toward his childhood best friend. With the formalities wrapped up, Geraldine drops a bombshell proposal. The raw dominance and power Luis just flexed easily outclasses the elite special forces, so she extends a prestigious invitation for him to join the military ranks. Even so, she honestly admits that a base guardian's word might not be enough to lock down someone of his caliber. Deep down, Geraldine is still struggling to process the insanity she just witnessed as a shocking truth dawns on her. Luis is a 3-star Ghost Axe Realm cultivator, matching her own rank with terrifying precision. However, the god-tier combat skills he just displayed completely shatter the known limits of that entire cultivation stage. Luis shoots her a curious look, asking if she truly believes her authority isn't enough to recruit him. Geraldine confirms the order to involve him comes from the top brass, who will likely visit him in person soon. Luis just lets out a soft chuckle at that. He admits he has massive respect for everyone there and honors their bravery. He's genuinely moved by their willingness to sacrifice everything, so he decides to offer them a special deal. If they ever hit a wall, they can call him just as they risk their lives to shield the common folk. But he sets one non-negotiable condition: no one messes with his private cultivation or tries to clip his wings. The scene shifts as night falls, finding Luis back at his apartment, meditating on the rooftop, draped in a golden aura. He's fully aware that his lightning attribute is a legendary counter against dark monsters, making him a high-value target. Since the army isn't using threats, he figures this recruitment could actually benefit him by opening doors to secret info. Playing along would grant him access to classified intel in silence, which is a massive win for his growth. Luis sees through the government's dual strategy. The army led by Geraldine acts as the world's night watchman against external threats. On the flip side, Mara and the Cultivation Association manage the chaos brewing inside the city walls. As he dives deeper into meditation, a golden orb begins to throb in his core, fueled by the energy he absorbed earlier. That forbidden area energy has pushed him to his limit. Lucho recognizes the signs immediately. He is on the verge of another massive breakthrough. Meanwhile, across town, his cousin Yossi is heading home. Her thoughts are cut short when she glances up. In that instant, a colossal pillar of golden light pierces the sky, erupting directly from Luis's building. Her eyes widen in pure alarm as she senses that overwhelming energy, characteristic of a 3-star Ghost Axe Realm breakthrough. and the truth finally hits her with unsettling clarity. She was dead wrong about him. Yossi freezes in the middle of the street, completely speechless. Above the skyline hovers a massive divine axe, wreathed in flames, radiating a pressure so terrifying it defies logic. Yossi knows the ghost axe rank well, but this is on a whole different level of insanity. This energy is literally warping reality. Suddenly, a gargantuan divine hand begins to manifest among the clouds. The truth hits her like a physical blow as she recognizes this phenomenon from ancient legends. The spiritual creation realm. Knowing a pioneer with such godlike power is living nearby leaves her trembling with fear. That massive explosion of energy doesn't stay hidden. Miles away, alarms are screaming inside a high-tech command center. Technicians scramble as an urgent red alert flashes across every screen without stopping. Anomaly Index 99. A catastrophic level threat has been detected in the city's southeast sector. Mara and a senior officer instantly snap into high gear. What is happening? Deploy all units now, the officer bellows. Mara scowls, unable to fathom how such a monstrous force remained undetected until this moment. That kind of raw energy is enough to flatten the entire city. Soon, the top military brass gather around a holographic map for a tense emergency session. The question is simple: did a new god-tier spiritual creation pioneer just awaken? Or are they staring at an incoming apocalypse? It could be both, an officer remarks with a grim expression. The situation spirals into pure chaos. Drowning in nerves, the high-ranking officer finally makes the call to headquarters. Top-tier containment tech was demanded, specifically banning any weapons of mass destruction. Panic shattered as a subordinate burst in, gasping for air. Alert officially cancelled. It's no monster, just a pioneer's massive breakthrough elsewhere. Luis sighed in relief. Evolution complete. He had ascended to the elite one-star spiritual creation realm. His body felt lighter and more agile, but a sudden shock hit him. His physical strength hadn't surged as expected. That brief moment of tranquility was ruined by a buzzing phone. Albert texted, new anomaly detected. Magdalena University sports field. Deep cover military sources had already confirmed the site. A confirmed contamination zone. Worse, this was the second incident there. Luis noted the prior heat spike. Albert confirmed, history is repeating itself. Keep this secret. Luis joked about snitching, but Albert turned dead serious. I'm worried about your safety. Be careful. Luis tossed his phone aside. His friend's warning solidified the plan: stay cautious around the army. He had to fly low to avoid being targeted. His Yang attribute stayed secret. He'd only unleash the Crimson Flameleaf technique if pushed. His ultimate trump card, he sent one final text promising Albert he had a solid emergency backup. The door clicked open. Yossi was home. Seeing Luis slumped, she asked if he'd eaten, waving takeout. Luis, glued to his screen, barely looked up. Leave it on the table. I'll eat later. Yossi watched him coldly. Frustration swirled inside her. Her cousin was kind-hearted but incredibly lazy. He seemed happy being a shut-in, skipping classes to doomscroll all day. So ironic. Other pioneers hunted for chances while hiding their secret identities, while he lived without ambition. Exhausted, Yossi retreated to her room. News of a new spiritual creation realm pioneer would spread like absolute wildfire. Still fueled by duty, she vowed to step up if ever necessary. She'd protect her clueless cousin. Meanwhile, Luis wasn't just wasting time. He was actually dissecting every single detail of the latest intelligence report. The file was packed with images of a massive campus inferno. He noticed something: the first anomaly was heat, but now it was fire. Another Yang manifestation footage showed flames erupting suddenly and spreading with fury. The intensity was terrifying. Online eyewitnesses expressed absolute total disbelief. Some wondered why special forces were being deployed for a mere fire. Trees were reduced to ash, and the entire sector was now quarantined. The video cut out suddenly, proving this was way worse than before. Luis scowled. If this blaze was Yang-based, then the manifestation had shifted. Only one way to know. He'd investigate himself. He'd investigate personally. To bypass the cordon, he needed Geraldine's help, his military contact. The next day, reporters crowded the sealed university gates. Soldiers blocked the campus, while journalists screamed questions into the chaos. They demanded the truth about the unquenchable fire and the media blackout. Amidst the frenzy, Geraldine arrived with Luis. Every eye locked onto them. Two imposing figures. Without a word, soldiers let them walk right in. Reporters were stunned watching them enter, while everyone else stayed barred. Inside the cordon, both began their inspection. Luis surveyed the blackened landscape, chilled by the raw, destructive power. Luis asked if this was the legendary Heavenly Fire. Geraldine nodded, confirming its terrifying name. This blaze strikes without warning, unquenchable until every last atom is reduced to ash. The title wasn't hype, it was a death sentence. After scouring the wreckage, Geraldine told Luis to wait, while she briefed the university dean. He shrugged, fine with the solitude. Luis paced the edge of the scorched zone, marked by yellow tape. He knelt, fingers brushing the blackened, carbonized earth, analyzing the disaster. Something felt off. The ground was ice cold, and more importantly, zero spiritual essence remained. Pure disappointment washed over him. No attribute to harvest. His plan was far too naive. As he brooded, a familiar voice called out. Luis looked up to find his ex, Rosa, standing there with a stunned friend. Rosa demanded to know his business. Her friend, a four-eyed girl, realized he was the tech school failure Rosa always mentioned. Rosa didn't deny it, giving a simple, cold nod of confirmation. The friend stepped closer, patting his shoulder with pure, unadulterated arrogance and pity. She claimed he was clearly obsessed with his ex, but their social status was now miles apart. Just give up, she sneered. Luis stared back, genuinely baffled. Obsessed. The idea was hilarious. Nearby, students began whispering. Eyes were glued to the scene, wondering who this random guy was talking to, the campus goddess. Most assumed he was just another rejected simp. They mocked his outsider look, demanding security. Kick the intruder out. Rosa's friend took it a step further, getting aggressive. She barked that Rosa was a star and he was a nobody. Countless elites were lining up for her, and he wasn't even on the radar. Get out, she ordered, declaring this place was elite only. She even threatened to call the guards if he didn't explain his illegal entry. Meanwhile, Rosa watched with a complex gaze. She remembered Luis, saying he'd never regret their breakup. Now she assumed his coldness was just a desperate act. Suddenly, Geraldine returned. She calmly asked Luis if these girls were his friends. Rosa froze at the sight of the stunning red-haired powerhouse. Luis replied icily that they were just old classmates, not friends. Geraldine shrugged, completely unimpressed. Just acquaintances then, she noted. She slid on her sunglasses, making her overwhelming presence feel even more suffocating. Rosa and her friend trembled under the woman's aura, desperate to know her identity and her connection to Luis. Geraldine turned to him, ignoring the girls, to deliver the update. This heavenly fire incident was deeper than expected. The dean was arriving to lead them directly to the ground zero. As the special military consultant, Luis was the key. He nodded, ready for business. Just then, a group of high-ranking officials in suits appeared. They cleared the area, announcing a total lockdown of the field. Rosa and the students stood paralyzed as they recognized the university dean. This legendary figure rarely appeared. Yet here he was personally greeting Luis and the mysterious redhead. It was mind-blowing. However, Rosa's friend totally misread the room. She smirked, thinking the dean was there to trash the two intruders. Rosa, however, stayed silent, feeling a sudden gnawing sense of dread. To everyone's shock, the dean didn't arrest Luis. Instead, the old man rushed forward, greeting the boy with a warm, respectful handshake. As Geraldine's hand-picked consultant, Luis was treated like royalty. The dean shared his deep fears regarding the anomalies and student safety. He looked visibly relieved. Luis was there. Then, in a move that made the crowd gasp, the dean bowed slightly, formally entrusting Luis with the entire field investigation. From the sidelines, Rosa watched with trembling eyes, as the loser she once knew shattered her reality into a million pieces. The director's security detail tightened the perimeter, creating a human wall to push back the surging crowd. Shoved by the chaotic mob of students, Rosa stood frozen, unable to process the insane scene unfolding before her. The prestigious university director was actually bowing to a guy she thought was just a nobody from her past. The campus gossip flipped instantly. No one was laughing about a rejected ex-boyfriend or a loser anymore. Now everyone saw him as a legendary powerhouse. Whispers spread that the tables had turned so hard that even if Rosa begged for his attention now, she wouldn't even be worth a single glance from him. The coldest realization hit her like a truck. Through this whole ordeal, Luis hadn't acknowledged her existence, not even once. The campus goddess, usually worshipped by everyone, was now utterly invisible and alone. Rosa thought she was the main character, but our boy is playing in a different league. Let's keep going. Deep in the northern district of Magdalena University, the director escorted Luis and Geraldine to the anomaly site. As they walked, he explained the crisis. It all started with the Golden Sun incident, an event he hoped would be the end of their troubles. But clearly fate had much darker plans for this campus. A few nights ago, an unquenchable fire erupted in the fields. Since it happened under the cover of darkness, they sealed the perimeter to contain the danger. The director's expression darkened as he continued his grim report. 2 more infernos spontaneously broke out across the grounds. But the most terrifying part was what the director witnessed personally: a crimson flame descending from the heavens, hovering mid-air like a demonic specter. This wasn't a normal fire. It was a supernatural omen. They managed to douse 2 of the blazes, but the third raged on, defiant. As they approached, the suffocating stench of scorched earth filled Luis's lungs. They reached the basketball court where a single hoop burned with an eerie, eternal fire that refused to die. The director confirmed this was ground zero. No matter what they tried, these flames were impossible to extinguish. Examining the anomaly, Geraldine checked her wrist-mounted scanner. The screen displayed a spiritual reading of 11. She warned Luis that this spiritual detector flagged anything over 10 as a lethal threat to ordinary humans. That is why the zone was strictly off-limits. Suddenly, the device began to glitch and flash a warning red. A sharp beep echoed as the numbers skyrocketed to 60. Geraldine's face went pale at the sudden power surge. She screamed that if this energy kept climbing, the entire city would be caught in the blast radius. They needed an elite squad immediately. But before a call could be made, Luis decided to take charge. Without a second thought, he vaulted over the chain-link fence, completely ignoring Geraldine's desperate shouts to stop. He walked straight into the heart of the inferno. Within seconds, the raging flames swallowed his entire silhouette. As the duo watched in absolute horror, the spiritual detector began to scream once again. The reading hit 110. Geraldine's eyes nearly popped as she shrieked. It is an S-rank anomaly. Terrified, the director gasped, wondering how Luis could possibly survive stepping into that literal hellscape. Geraldine whispered in awe that not even the strongest warrior from the Forbidden Zone would dare this. Walking solo into that was suicide. Yet inside the fire, Luis stood perfectly still and completely unscathed. Amidst the roar of the blaze, he knew his yang attribute, which tanked divine lightning, would shield him here. This celestial fire was nothing to him, but he quickly realized his ultimate defense was actually a hindrance. His barrier was so strong, it prevented him from touching the core to trigger a system skill gain. Luis knew he had to reach the very heart of the anomaly. He watched the flames coil around the hoop, twisting and snarling like a massive fire dragon. Without a flinch, he prepared to take it head-on. The fire dragon lunged with incinerating fury. In that split second, Luis made a high-stakes gamble. He shut down his Golden Sun aura, leaving himself wide open. The celestial heat instantly devoured him. It was a storm of raw energy. He ground his teeth as agonizing pain surged through every nerve. The flaming beast roared, striking with a scorched earth intensity as Luis doubled down on his dangerous choice. Stripped of his golden barrier, he was defenseless. Pure energy lashed at his soul. He fought back a scream as the searing agony threatened to break him. Even as the fire scorched his skin, he reached out with iron will, determined to seize the anomaly's core. His high-stakes gamble paid off the instant his fingers brushed the core of the blaze. The system roared to life, detecting the legendary celestial fire attribute despite his searing agony. A cold, determined smirk surfaced on Luis's face. He was stunned by the fire's untamed will. It far surpassed his recently acquired desolation attribute. With sheer grit, he vowed to devour its power. Price didn't matter. The system began crunching data at lightning speed to process the energy. A notification flashed. Luis had successfully unlocked the mythical celestial fire sealing art. This Nine Dragons technique was a divine power, forged to purge evil and bind ancient demons. As he channeled the technique, the wild, chaotic inferno finally began to obey his command. The fire coiled around his arm like a dragon that had finally found its true master. Skill fully synchronized. Luis focused his intent and began siphoning the primordial essence of the flame. His eyes ignited with a brilliant crimson glow as the celestial energy flooded his veins. Glowing brands etched onto his skin. With hands locked in a seal, his gaze burned like embers. Shimmering scarlet chains suddenly erupted from his back, lunging deep into the heart of the fire. Beyond the barrier, Geraldine and the director watched the spectacle, their jaws hitting the floor. Geraldine instantly recognized that overwhelming aura. It was a seal of the highest order. She'd only seen such power when a top-tier military pioneer once sealed a forbidden land. Though the method was unique, the raw god-tier energy radiating from him was unmistakable. With a sharp command, Luis retracted the chains, crushing the wildfire into a single point. The celestial inferno was compressed into a glowing orb of pure energy, floating silently in midair. Luis held the chained sphere briefly, before it drifted gently down toward the basketball hoop. Landing softly, he informed the director that the threat was temporarily neutralized by his seal, but he warned that the court must remain isolated, no entry, no repairs to prevent an outbreak. The director agreed instantly, promising to keep the entire area cordoned off from the public. It was a small sacrifice given the university had plenty of other courts for the students, yet Geraldine's intense gaze never left Luis. The director tried to break the tension with humor. He joked about Luis's monstrous skills, offering his full backing if the boy ever needed anything. Geraldine cut him off, demanding a private word. The director took the hint and quickly vanished. Her tone went ice cold as she faced Luis. She knew he was hiding his true depth. Luis tried to play it cool, making a casual remark about how tough the fire was. She wasn't buying the act. She told him to drop the mask. She wasn't talking about fire. She was talking about his terrifying talent and the massive power he clearly possessed. Her voice softened slightly, admitting that legends like him always keep their best cards hidden. Luis stayed silent as Geraldine's expression shifted into something much more dead serious. She confessed she had no right to demand answers, but begged him to listen carefully. She spoke of a looming chaotic future, where spiritual energy would fully awaken across the world. In that era, the nation would be desperate for top-tier monsters like him to survive. She compared his potential to a modern nuclear warhead, a power that could decide the fate of nations. Every major power from secret military zones to the Energy Association would soon hunt for him. He'd be flooded with invitations and insane offers from the highest officials in the country. She was honest about her motives. If he joined her unit, he'd be their ultimate trump card. She urged him to weigh his options now so he wouldn't be blindsided by the coming tide. Luis hesitated, then asked why she and Elver seemed so afraid to recruit him themselves. It was as if they felt their own legendary forbidden zone wasn't even worthy of him. Geraldine sighed. There was one specific legendary military region far above the rest. She believed only a group that powerful could ever satisfy someone of his god-tier caliber. Following the director's lead, he suggested pausing their talk to head straight for the cafeteria. Walking in silence, the MC realized something chilling. Even the nation's elite forces were drowning in chaos. Massive trouble was brewing. Geraldine's warning was clear. Monstrous anomalies were surfacing at an alarming rate. These nightmares possessed strength far beyond average pioneers. It was likely that among these deadly ranks, powerful soul cultivators like him existed, maybe even stronger ones. That terrifying thought sparked a sudden fire in Luis. A desperate sense of urgency hit him. The great spiritual awakening was coming, and it was coming fast. He wasn't ready yet, not even close. Shifting gears, his mind turned to a more pressing matter. How could he master the heavenly fire he just claimed? It was primal, erratic, and hungered to consume everything. This was the ultimate weapon against monsters with endless regeneration. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed through his mind. The savage energy of heavenly fire was the perfect match for his crimson flame blade. He visualized it. His sword wreathed in that god-tier power, a total game-changer for his combat style. To test this new strength, Luis headed back to his usual training grounds in the rear mountains, ready to push his limits again. But something was wrong. A massive "Danger No Trespassing" sign now blocked the path he knew so well. He frowned. Who did this? He knew there were no high-level monsters lurking in this specific sector of the woods. Besides, there was no way the military had tracked down his secret training spot so quickly. It didn't add up. Then it clicked. Only the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, knowing his routines, could have pulled a move like this. Realizing the intent behind the gesture, a small smirk played on his lips. They were clearly playing their cards right. They were buttering him up with a private training field. Honestly, he wasn't about to complain about the VIP treatment. Why reject such a sweet deal? He accepted the gift. But suddenly the peaceful vibe vanished into thin air. His hyper-tuned senses flared. Someone else was here. An uninvited guest had breached the mountain's perimeter. Luis caught a familiar aura, creepy and cold, just like the one from the factory, though far more suppressed and hidden. Crouching in the thick foliage, a twisted ape-like monstrosity emerged. Its crimson eyes glowed with a predatory, haunting light. It just watched him. Luis realized something eerie. The beast wasn't mindlessly charging. Instead, it was hesitating, calculating his strength. It possessed a disturbing level of intelligence. With his blade already pulsing with raw energy, Luis knew the time was now. This was the ultimate chance to unleash his true potential. Suddenly, a system notification flashed brightly before his eyes. It asked if he wanted to infuse his newly acquired heavenly fire directly into his blade. The prompt hummed with power. The system confirmed it. Heavenly fire was a top-tier light attribute, designed specifically to incinerate everything evil and impure. Luis didn't hesitate. With eyes blazing with absolute resolve, he clicked, "Accept." Instantly, the world around him seemed to tremble. His blade erupted into a massive pillar of roaring white flames. A thrill of excitement surged through him as he smirked. Combining the limitless heavenly fire with his crimson blade felt incredible. This mutant freak was about to become his first test subject. Without warning, he unleashed a devastating firestorm. The monster stood no chance against the overwhelming wall of celestial heat. Paralyzed by sheer terror, the beast's eyes widened as the inferno swallowed it whole. There was nowhere left for it to run. Blood-curdling screams echoed from the heart of the hellscape Luis had unleashed. The intensity of the heat was absolutely insane. Luis analyzed the impact. His attack power hadn't just doubled, it felt like it had tripled. This buff was truly broken. Oddly, the flames didn't burn him. Even the hilt of his sword remained perfectly cool against his palm despite the carnage. Suddenly, a movement. The beast had survived. Against the odds, it was desperately trying to scramble away into the darkness. His gaze hardened. He wasn't letting it get away. Meanwhile, on the other side of the mountain, a different scene unfolded. A girl with curly red hair was busy live-streaming, her phone propped up on a selfie stick as she chatted away confidently. She bragged to her viewers about her insane luck, claiming that viral content practically chased her down wherever she went. But the chat wasn't buying it. One viewer poked fun, daring her to actually prove her luck at Magdalena University. They wanted to see the legendary heavenly fire. She kept the stream going with pure, unshakable confidence until the world went sideways. Her face went pale as a sudden violent noise cut her off. Total shock replaced her smile as something moved in the brush. An ape-like monster, nearly identical to the one Luis fought, lunged from the shadows, launching a savage attack directly at her. The impact was brutal. Her phone was knocked away, hitting the ground with a sickening crack. yet the stream stayed live. Through the shattered glass, thousands of horrified viewers watched as the monster pinned the terrified girl to the earth. To most viewers, it looked like a staged scene with amateur effects, but the truth was far more sinister. The girl shrieked in absolute terror as the beast pinned her down its massive claws, silencing her cries. The creature unhinged, its jagged jaws flashing rows of fangs as it prepared to deliver the killing blow. But just as death approached, the impossible happened. A massive eruption of sapphire-hot flames tore through the air. A roaring fire dragon slammed into the monster, sending its heavy body flying like a rag doll. The girl gasped in shock, saved at the very last second, while the online viewers were losing it. Totally oblivious to the real danger, the chat was hyped, convinced they were seeing top-tier dragon CGI. This insane dramatic twist sent the livestream viral, with the audience exploding past 13,000 viewers instantly. Trembling with adrenaline, the girl scanned the shadows for her savior before desperately grabbing her phone to stand. She aimed her lens at the raging inferno, shouting to her fans that she had captured the miracle. A lone figure stood tall amidst the lethal flames, and as the camera focused, everything became clear. It was Louise standing perfectly unscathed in the center of the fire. The girl watched paralyzed in total awe. She realized then that a legendary warrior had truly saved her. Soon the footage began breaking the internet. Within hours, Luis's epic intervention became the #1 trending topic across every social media platform. The video went absolutely nuclear, racking up more than 13.5 million views in record time. Clickbait headlines were everywhere, calling him the messenger of the celestial flame and the king of fire. Rumors spread like wildfire that an ancient immortal had descended to Earth to protect humanity from doom. Back at the office, Rosa's friend rushed over, vibrating with hype, and forced her to watch the clip. She gushed that this proved powerful cultivators existed, and that the university's fire legend was actually real. Rosa just scoffed, convinced the whole thing was a scripted performance packed with high-end special effects. However, as she leaned in for a closer look, her smug expression slowly began to crumble into dust. Her skepticism froze into soul-crushing shock and recognition, while her friend kept thirsting over the hero's looks. The friend continued to rave about how insanely handsome and mysterious the man in the video was. Rosa stayed deathly silent, her mind racing. Internally, she was desperately praying the video was a total fake. She tried to convince herself that Luis was a loser who would have been turned to ash instantly. But that denial was quickly transforming into a cold, numbing fear that started creeping up her spine. What if it really was him? The thought of Luis wielding such godlike power left her feeling deeply unsettled. She feared his revenge for their breakup, yet her pride made her vow she would never bow to him. Elsewhere, Josiah, the elite pioneer leader, was also dissecting the viral footage with her team members. Her subordinate asked point-blank if this was the same powerhouse who had saved them from the vine monster. Josiah nodded calmly, revealing they had detected a master of the spiritual creation realm in that exact area. A chilling doubt crossed her mind. Could her quiet, unassuming cousin actually be this mysterious high-level pioneer? Across the city, the two survivors from the lava cave were also glued to their screens watching. The man immediately recognized Luis's unique combat stance, noting that his raw power had reached terrifying levels. His partner agreed, spotting the unmistakable sword style that matched the man they had seen before perfectly. They realized then just how lucky they were to have such a monstrous figure protecting their local area. News of this overwhelming display of power quickly reached the highest ranks of the country's top organizations. At the association headquarters, the urban crisis was spiraling as pioneers struggled to keep up with the chaos. High-ranking officials were being briefed on the situation when an officer stepped forward with a confident update. He assured them the military was already in contact with Luis and that he would eventually become their ace. Meanwhile, at a classified military hub, Geraldine and Major Jaime were analyzing the data with intense focus. They called him a literal monster for reaching the spiritual creation realm in such a breathtakingly short time. After debating his stats, they concluded he likely possessed 3 or even more high-tier elemental attributes. They finally realized that trying to intimidate him was a massive mistake. Their only choice now was recruitment. The major then asked if the top brass would personally approach Luis, as Geraldine watched the screen silently. He confirmed the deal, yet the military brass remained skeptical. Traditionally, every top-tier pioneer was homegrown. Recruiting an outsider felt like a blow to their pride, a move they weren't used to making. Seizing the lead, the major pitched a fresh play. His men began digging into what gear Luis might need, planning to offer high-grade equipment as a peace offering. They'd even grant him elite training grounds, but a far more critical command loomed overhead. Scrub the viral footage and kill the rumors. The nation's spiritual energy now centered on one man, Luis. Elsewhere, Mara and Geraldine weighed the future. While she dreaded the crushing weight of fame, ahead, he just smirked with pure confidence. Both titans watched, eager to see Luis's next move. Inside a hushed hospital ward punctuated by the rhythmic beep of a monitor, a violet-haired woman watched over a comatose man she called Master. Her voice was a fragile whisper, as if afraid to shatter the stillness. She murmured that hope had finally returned. via Louise significantly boosting the odds of her master finally opening his eyes once more. 24 hours later, Louise sat at home replaying the chaos over a quiet breakfast. That mountain clash had blown up online all thanks to a reckless streamer trespassing into a forbidden zone for clout. But as he scrolled through his phone, he spotted something bizarre. The clip had vanished, and the streamer's account was nuked. Likely, the military's doing. Or the spiritual association, he figured. But then, a chilling realization gripped his mind. His cousin was missing in action. No texts, no signs of her coming home last night. This was wrong, even for a high-stakes mission. Anxiety flared as he reached for his phone to call, but it went straight to voicemail. A sinking feeling settled in his gut. Something was definitely off. He had to find her. Meanwhile, miles away in a desolate wasteland, shrouded in suffocating fog, Yossi and her crimson-haired captain were hopelessly trapped. How long? The captain rasped. 10 hours. Yossi guessed as her grip on reality began to slip, along with her hope. Battered and bleeding, the leader choked out an apology, hating herself for dragging Yossi into this nightmare. She'd only meant to scout a weird anomaly. She clutched her side, where agony pulsed. Through her body, Yossi cut her off, refusing to hear another word of regret. It's my weakness that's to blame, Yossi snapped, urging her captain to stay focused. Clinging to her last drop of mana, her mind drifted toward a legendary master she once met. She prayed for just a sliver of that overwhelming strength to save them, but their desperate talk was cut short by a sudden, terrifying chill. A massive shadow loomed from the mist behind them, a thorn-covered beast with glowing red eyes. The creature lunged its jagged claws, aimed straight for the captain's throat.